Chapter 506. How could this be? Seeing his most powerful fire-type spell being so easily disintegrated, the old man's haughty expression sank. When he looked at Chu Bei again, his eyes were filled with dread. At this point, if he still didn't know that he had kicked a hardboard, then he really would be an idiot. What shocked him even more was that he couldn't determine whether the opponent was a warrior or a magus. The old man didn't think for too long. After all, regardless of whether the opponent was a warrior or a magus, they were both of the 9th rank. He was no match for them. Rumble. The earth rumbled. The old man immediately ordered the Velocidragon beneath his feet to flee in the direction they had come from. You've already made your move, and you still think you can leave safely? However, the Velocidragon hadn't even run 100 meters when Chu Bei's disdainful, mocking voice drifted through the air. In the next moment, Chu Bei appeared above the Velocidragon's head in a single step, blocking the old man's path. Boom! Chu Bei pointed a finger. Not to mention a magus of the 8th rank, even a warrior of the 8th rank wouldn't be able to withstand Chu Bei's attack. Amidst the sound of an explosion, the old man's body exploded into a cloud of flesh and blood. After witnessing the old man's death, the Velocidragon of the 7th rank began to tremble. Then, as if it had gone mad, it charged madly towards the forest of magical beasts. But before it could run far, its body suddenly stiffened, as if it had been bound by an invisible force. Then, as if a terrifying energy had been injected into its limbs, it exploded into a pile of flesh and blood. Dead. That magus of the 8th rank and the Velocidragon of the 7th rank are both dead. Haha, we're fine, we're safe. A warrior of the 9th rank. He must be a warrior of the 9th rank. No, he must be a magus of the 9th rank. Hogg, Hillman, and the others stared blankly at the blood-stained ground in the distance. When they came back to their senses, they all revealed excited expressions. Then, they all cupped their fists and thanked Chu Bei, their faces filled with respect. A warrior of the 9th rank, no matter if he was a warrior or a magus, no matter where he was, would receive the respect of the world. So strong. Little Linley stared at Chu Bei with a face full of adoration. Linley, did this lord really say that he would accept you as his disciple? Hogg seemed to have thought of something. He immediately lowered his head to look at Linley, his voice filled with excitement. Yes, Lord Father. Linley nodded heavily. Haha, our Baruch clan has a chance to rise to prominence. Upon receiving Linley's confirmation, Hogg began to laugh heartily, as though his entire body had suddenly relaxed. Rumble. Suddenly, a rumbling sound came from the distant eastern sky. Look, someone in the crowd exclaimed. Everyone couldn't help but look towards the eastern sky. In his line of sight, high up in the sky, he saw a 100-meter-long black dragon flying over. Its eyes were like huge wheels, and the black dragon scales on its huge body shone with a chilling light. Every time it flapped its huge wings, which had a wingspan of over 100 meters, it would scatter the surrounding white clouds. That's a black dragon. As a member of the Baruch clan, Hogg naturally knew all types of dragons. Black dragons were one of the most powerful magical beasts. Generally speaking, they were magical beasts of the 9th rank. The experts in their clan might even be at the saint level. But of course, regardless of whether it was a magical beast of the 9th rank or a saint level, they were vastly superior to the Velocidragon from earlier. First a Velocidragon of the 7th rank, then a magus of the 8th rank, and now a black dragon of the 9th rank, and even a saint-level magical beast. Good heavens, what is going on with our little Wushan township today? I'm afraid you've forgotten about our savior. He's also a combatant of the 9th rank. The townsfolk stared at the 100-meter-long black dragon in the eastern sky, their hearts filled with shock. There's someone atop the black dragon's head, Hillman cried out in shock. Looking over, they saw a gray-robed man standing proudly atop the black dragon's head. The wind howled, and the gray-robed man's robes fluttered in the wind. But the gray-robed man stood as straight as a spear, as steady as a boulder in the wind. Swish! A piercing sound could be heard. In front of the gray-robed man and the black dragon, a green-robed middle-aged man came to a halt in midair, facing the gray-robed man from afar. On his back, he carried a long sword. His weapon is a sword. He's a warrior who can stand in midair. This is the mark of a saint-level combatant. Staring at the green-robed man in midair, Hogg, Hillman, and the others all had looks of deep astonishment on their faces. Earlier, in the battle with the Magus of the 8th rank, although Chu Bei had also flown in midair, he hadn't flown too far or too high. Thus, in the eyes of the others, Chu Bei had merely used the wind-style soaring technique and could only hover in midair for a short period of time. But this green-robed man was different. He was actually standing in midair, hundreds of meters in the air. So that means that gray-robed man standing atop the Black Dragon's head is also a saint-level combatant. Good heavens! 2 saint-level combatants. How many saint-level combatants can there be in the entire kingdom of Funlai? Everyone's gazes shifted back and forth between the gray-robed man and the green-robed man, so much so that they completely ignored their savior, Chu Bei. Dylan, hand it over. The gray-robed man stood atop the Black Dragon's head, glaring angrily at the green-robed man. His cold voice reverberated through the skies, clearly reaching the ears of every single resident of Wushan Township. Ludi, aren't you going too far? You actually want to steal from me? The green-robed man stared coldly at the gray-robed man, his face dark. What? They are the Stellar Sword Saint Dylan and the Saint-level Arch Magus Ludi. Upon hearing the names of the green-robed man and the gray-robed man, Hillman and Hogg's faces instantly changed, filled with astonishment. They were puzzled. What were these 2 famous figures fighting over? Dylan, do you think you are a match for me? As Ludi's cold voice rang out, the enormous black dragon beneath his feet suddenly let out a loud roar. Its enormous wings flapped, and a terrifying aura of power emanated outwards. So this is the aura of a dragon? Despite being so far away, Hogg, Hillman, and the other residents could all sense this terrifying aura. All of them began to pant, and their legs began to grow weak. Rumble. Just as everyone was about to faint from the pressure, an enormous barrier of light suddenly appeared around them. With the isolation of this layer of light shield, everyone instantly recovered. It was that Lord who protected us. The residents seemed to realize something, and they once again bowed towards Chu Bei in gratitude. Ludi, do you really think I'm afraid of you? Dylan roared, unsheathing the long sword on his back. A thunderous sword hum reverberated through the skies. Since you refuse to come to your senses, then don't blame me for what happens next. Ludi narrowed his eyes. As his cold voice rang out, the black dragon beneath his feet suddenly opened its enormous maw, spitting out a stream of black flames towards Dylan. The black flames moved extremely quickly, and in the blink of an eye, they covered Dylan's entire body like smoke. Fight! Dylan's body began to shine with a dazzling jade-green light, blocking the black flames. At the same time, he slashed out with his sword. With a ripping sound, a gigantic sword ray that was dozens of meters long cut through the air, viciously chopping towards Ludi. Asterisk rumble. Asterisk high up in the sky, the 2 saint-level combatants were engaged in a fierce battle. All sorts of brilliant lights flashed. The battle continued for an unknown period of time. Finally, PFFF, the Stellar Sword Saint Dylan was injured. He spat out a mouthful of blood, his face pale. Dylan, you'd better hand it over. You can't defeat the world protector that I've summoned. Ludi continued to stand atop the black dragon's head, and behind him floated an enormous earthen giant. Hearing Ludi's words, Dylan's expression became extremely unsightly. Not long after, as if he had made a difficult decision, he harshly said, Ludi, if I can't have it, then neither can you. Hearing this, not only did Ludi's expression change, but even Chu Bei's expression changed slightly. At this moment, Chu Bei seemed to have suddenly remembered something. The playful expression on his face disappeared, and with a single step, he appeared in the middle of Dylan and Ludi's battle. Quick, look. His lordship, he's entered the battle as well. What is he doing? Chu Bei's appearance in the battle instantly became the focus of everyone in Wushan Township. Did you see that? Our benefactor is standing in the air as well. Could it be that our benefactor isn't of the 9th rank, but rather a saint-level combatant like those two? But then again, what is our benefactor's goal in entering the battle at this time? Could it be that he is also fighting over the treasures those two are fighting over? All of the townsfolk began to speculate amongst themselves. Who might you be, sir? Can you tell us your name? Chu Bei's appearance caused both Ludi and Dylan to reveal a hint of wariness on their faces. For him to be able to stand in the air meant that he was also a saint-level combatant. For a saint-level combatant to appear at a time like this, they couldn't help but suspect his motives. You will know who I am in the future. Chu Bei swept Ludi and Dylan with his gaze, then said calmly, his words filled with confidence. Since you won't say, sir, then I won't ask any further. What is your goal, sir? Ludi frowned, then opened his mouth to ask. Chu Bei didn't answer Ludi's question. Instead, he turned to look at Dylan. Is that a Shadow Eater rat of the 9th rank in your hands? How did you know? A hint of surprise flashed through Dylan's eyes, and then he let out a cold snort. So you came for it as well. Haha, if I can't have it, then neither can you. Dylan suddenly began to laugh loudly, and then his tightly clenched left hand suddenly began to glow with a jade-green light. Stop! Seeing the jade-green light in Dylan's left hand grow brighter and brighter, Ludi's face changed dramatically. In the next instant, he began to chant an incantation, controlling the earthen giant behind him to fly towards Dylan. You won't be able to stop me. Dylan's eyes were filled with a bloody light, and he seemed to have gone mad. The green light in his left hand grew even more dazzling, and one could vaguely see a black object swelling up in his left hand. Screech! A miserable cry sounded out from Dylan's tightly clenched hand. Chapter 507. Quick, look. That's a rat. Is this real? The Stellar Sword Saint and the Saint-level Arch-Magus Saint are fighting over a rat. For it to be fought over by two Saint-level combatants, it definitely isn't an ordinary rat. It's a Shadow Eater rat. No matter what sort of rat it is, it won't be able to escape death. Seeing the rat in Dylan's hand, Hogg, Hillman, and all the other residents of Wushan Township revealed looks of shock and disbelief. Little fellow, I originally wanted to take care of you, but now, it seems I have no choice but to send you on your way. Dylan glanced at the Shadow Eater rat in his hand, then shook his head. A look of determination appeared on his face. Die. As Dylan's cold voice rang out, the green light around his left hand flowed into the Shadow Eater rat's body. Rumble. The Shadow Eater rat's screams grew more and more miserable, and its body grew larger and larger. Aside from the thick hatred in its eyes, there was also a reluctance to part, as though it was reluctant to part with its child. Tears flowed down its cheeks. It was bidding farewell to this world, to its child. Swish! But just as the Shadow Eater rat's body was about to explode, a violet light flashed past Chu Bei's fingertips. In the next instant, a miserable howl rang out. This was Dylan's miserable cry. As the violet light flashed past, the Shadow Eater rat's left hand was severed by the violet light, causing blood to spurt out. As for the severed hand, it immediately fell into Chu Bei's hands. And then, with a wave of his sleeve, Chu Bei caused the violent energy within the Shadow Eater rat's body to dissipate. Who are you? Why did you save me? The Shadow Eater rat stared at Chu Bei, his face pale. His voice was extremely weak, as though he could die at any moment. Rumble. Without waiting for Chu Bei to answer the Shadow Eater rat's question, Rudy's earthen giant changed directions, charging towards Chu Bei from its original target, Dylan. Bang! Chu Bei glanced calmly at the earthen giant, tens of meters tall, his eyes flashing. Then, a bright wave of light surged out and tore through the void. It instantly destroyed the yellow giant. Violent shockwaves swept out, targeting the distant black dragon and Ludi who was on its back. With a dragon's roar, the scales on the surface of the black dragon's body clanged. With a painful roar, the huge figure retreated. From the moment Chu Bei cut off Tyron's left hand to save the Shadow Eater rat, to the moment he destroyed the khaki-colored giant and forced Black Dragon and Ludi to retreat, it all happened in a split second. Impossible. Ludi instantly distanced himself from Chu Bei. When he looked at Chu Bei again, His eyes were filled with shock and fear. As for the stellar sword Saint Tyran, he was clutching his broken left hand with his right hand. His expression was contorted from the pain, and apart from intense killing intent, there was also fear in his eyes as he looked at Chu Bei. Our benefactor has obtained the Shadow Eater rat. So strong. Sword Sage Tyran's arm was chopped off, and Grand Magus Saint Rudy was repelled. My God, even though they are both saints, how can there be such a huge disparity in strength between them? His lordship is actually able to easily suppress a saint warrior and a Grand Magus saint by himself. But speaking of which, is our benefactor a warrior or a magus? The group of residents stared blankly at the scene in the sky. They all took a deep breath, their eyes filled with astonishment. Hogg and Hillman's gazes were still fixed on the stellar sword Saint Tyran's broken arm. Fresh blood was still flowing out from there. They felt as if they had been struck by a bolt from the blue, or as if they had been drenched from head to toe in a cold spring. They were at a loss. This lordship of unknown origins was too strong. He was so strong that they didn't dare to believe it. When they thought about how such an unparalleled expert was actually willing to accept Linley as his disciple, Hogg and Hillman exchanged glances. Their brows simultaneously relaxed, and the joy on their faces grew more and more apparent. Could it be that he has already surpassed the Saint Realm? That's impossible. Doring Cowart floated out from the coiling dragon ring in Linley's hand. He glanced at Tyran and Rudy, then at Chu Bei. He mumbled to himself, his expression somewhat dazed. God, you're a god. The stellar sword, Saint Tyran stared warily at Chu Bei. His entire body was as tense as a rock. He couldn't help but blurt out this bold thought. His cultivation had already reached the Saint Realm, and even among the Saint Realm experts, he was considered to be above average. But just now, this person had easily chopped off his arm and snatched the Shadow Eater rat away before he could even react. Rudy was still standing on top of the black dragon head. Although he didn't speak, his heart was as heavy as lead. It was extremely solemn. His opponent's casual attack had directly shattered his most powerful level 10 spell. His thoughts were the same as Tyran's. Perhaps this mysterious person he had never seen before was the fifth god of the continent. God. Chu Bei smiled and glanced at Tyran and Rudy. There are thousands of paths of cultivation. Different paths, different training systems, and different names for realms. The gods you speak of are just slightly more powerful people. What do you mean? Tyran and Rudy frowned. You didn't provoke me. Leave now. If you continue to be stubborn, you can stay here forever. Chu Bei didn't say anything else. His indifferent voice drifted through the air. At the same time, with himself as the center, two extremely powerful auras surged toward Tyran and Rudy. Almost instantly, Tyran and Rudy's expressions changed. Their bodies trembled, and they let out a muffled groan. Let's go. Tyran and Rudy glanced at Chu Bei fearfully once again. Without looking back, they flew into the distance. The stellar sword Saint Tyran and the Saint Realm Grand Magus Rudy have both left. Were they scared off by the Lord? The residents looked in the direction that Tyran and Rudy had left in, and they all began to discuss. Unknowingly, Chu Bei had brought the Shadow Eater rats to his side. My lord, did those two just say that you are a god? Hogg looked at Chu Bei with incomparable respect. His voice was somewhat nervous as he probed. If the realm above the saint level in your eyes is God, then you can indeed think of it that way. Chu Bei had some understanding of the different realms of cultivation in Coiling Dragon. As for what realm Coiling Dragon was at when he was at the peak of level 16, the system had yet to give an answer. However, it was definitely far above the saint level. In the Coiling Dragon world's cultivation system, there were two main professions in the Yulon continent. The first was the warrior, and the second was the magus. Both the warrior and the magus were ranked from level 1 to 9. Above level 9 were the saint-level warrior and the saint-level magus. When a warrior or magus stepped into the saint level, their soul and body would simultaneously transform, and they would gain the ability to fly. An early saint-level combatant would have a preliminary understanding of the force of nature. An intermediate saint-level combatant would be able to merge with nature, and their force of nature would reach perfection. A peak saint-level combatant would have a preliminary understanding of the profound mysteries of the laws. A peak Saint-level combatant would have a 99% understanding of the profound mysteries of the laws, and would be one step away from completely comprehending a profound mystery. Above the saint level were the so-called gods. The realm of gods encompassed an even wider range. The difference in strength between a lesser god and a lesser god was like the difference between heaven and earth, much less a lesser god, a greater god, and even more powerful existences. What? Benefactor is a god. Good heavens! Didn't they say that there were only 4 gods on the continent? Could it be that Benefactor is the 5th god? Upon hearing Chu Bei's words, the residents immediately rushed forward and bowed respectfully towards Chu Bei. Even the children's eyes were filled with reverence. "My lord, I heard from Linley that you wish to take him as your disciple?" Hogg looked at Chu Bei with incomparable eagerness, a hint of nervousness on his face, as though he was afraid that Chu Bei would shake his head. "That's right. Your eldest son and I are connected by destiny. I do indeed wish to take him as my personal disciple. Only, it seems as though he isn't too willing." Chu Bei chuckled. Folding his arms across his chest, he looked at Linley with amusement. "My lord, you really know how to joke? For you to be able to take Linley as your disciple is a blessing accumulated by the ancestors of our Baruch clan. How could this stinking kid not be willing?" Hogg hurriedly clasped his fists towards Chu Bei, then looked at Linley and barked, "Hurry up and pay your respects to your master." Linley was startled at first, but then he thought back to how powerful Chu Bei had been. Taking a deep breath, with a thud, he knelt down heavily on the ground. "Master, please accept your disciple's bow. To become my disciple, you need to go through a short ceremony." As he spoke, Chu Bei waved his right hand, and a surrogate ring appeared in his palm. "Disciple, drip a drop of blood into the ring." "Yes, master." Linley glanced at the surrogate ring, then bit his finger and dripped a drop of blood into the ring. The host has successfully signed a first-class surrogate contract with Linley. Level 17 Merchandise Authority has been activated 15%. First-class surrogate gift package has been issued. After signing the contract, the system's voice rang out in Chu Bei's mind. "Linley, since you have already addressed me as master, then I will give you a gift for becoming my disciple." Chu Bei opened the surrogate gift package, which contained a sparkling, translucent pill. "Smells so good." Linley accepted the pill, sniffed it, and then, after exchanging a glance with Chu Bei, popped it into his mouth. "Master, what did you give your disciple to eat? I seem to be in control of some sort of miraculous energy." Linley stretched his body, his eyes wide, his little face filled with excitement. After speaking, Linley's divine will moved. A short while later. "Little Linley, how did he become like this? What's going on? Good heavens! Did young Master Linley turn from a human into a magical beast? Can it be that it's because he ate that pill? Young Master Linley, are you all right?" Right at this moment, a group of residents began to cry out in alarm. All of them crowded around little Linley. Right now, Linley's body was many times larger than before, and his body was covered by a layer of hazy light. At a closer look, he was no longer a human, but a creature whose entire body was covered with golden scales. As for what kind of magical beast he was, there was no way to tell. Chapter 508. Lord, what's wrong with Linley? Hogg immediately looked towards Chu Bei, his face filled with worry. "Lord Father, your child is fine. Don't worry. Your child's body is filled with energy." Without waiting for Chu Bei to speak, Linley's voice rang out from within the sphere of light. In the next instant, with a massive boom, the sphere of light exploded, followed by a resonant dragon's roar. This is a dragon. Staring at the 5-clawed golden dragon flying in the air, all of the residents of Wushan Township cried out in shock. Everyone, including Hogg and Hillman, was stunned. That dragon couldn't have been young Master Linley's transformation, could it? How miraculous! The Dragon Clan is the royal clan of the magical beasts. But why haven't I seen young Master Linley's transformation before? He actually has 4 pairs of dragon horns and a crown. Just as the residents were wondering, Hog's body began to tremble uncontrollably. Dragon form. Someone from the Baruch clan has finally transformed into a dragon. Hog's eyes began to moisten. Staring at the five-clawed golden dragon in the air, he murmured to himself, tears of joy rolling down his cheeks. Because the Baruch clan had different levels of bloodline density, when transforming into a dragonblood warrior, there were generally 3 different forms. The first form was that the appearance didn't change at all, but the strength of the body increased slightly. The second form was that parts of the body would grow dragon scales, greatly increasing the strength of the body. The third form was that one would completely transform into a dragon, increasing the strength of the body to a terrifying degree. One would be able to kill enemies at a higher level. Before the chaos had begun, he had used the dragon blood needle to test Linley's bloodline density. Linley's bloodline didn't meet the requirements for transforming into a dragonblood warrior at all. But unexpectedly, the appearance of this mysterious lord not only allowed Linley to transform into a dragonblood warrior, he also transformed into the most powerful dragonblood warrior form. The only strange thing was that this dragon form was very different from the winged dragon which the ancestors of the Baruch clan had transformed into. Young Master Linley, did you just become stronger? Quick, let us all take a look. The residents all had curious looks on their faces. All right, Linley, in the form of a 5-clawed golden dragon, nodded, then flew to an enormous boulder that was nearly 10 meters tall, smashing down with his claws. Rumble. With a boom, the boulder exploded, filling the air with rubble. So strong. Staring at the countless fragments of the mountain, the residents of Wushan Township were all stunned. They were so shocked that they couldn't even speak. Uncles, this is the power I have now. Linley swung his draconic tail, his words filled with excitement. My lord, what sort of miraculous pill did you give Linley? That claw of his just now is at least from a 3rd-grade warrior. Hog stared at Linley in a daze, his face petrified. After regaining his composure, he said, My lord, do you have any more of these divine pills? It is actually capable of allowing the members of our Baruch clan to transform into the 3rd level of Dragonblood warrior. What? So Lord Hog's family is a Dragonblood warrior. Are they the legendary 4 supreme warriors? Hearing Hog's words, the faces of the residents of Wushan Township changed dramatically. Clearly, they hadn't heard of the history of the Baruch clan. Chu Bei glanced indifferently at Hog and said in an incomparably calm voice, What you see is not some dragonblood warrior, but the inheritance that I have given to my disciple, the inheritance of the ancestral dragon. Ancestral dragon's inheritance? Hearing this, Hog, Hillman, and the others all stared at Chu Bei in confusion. But Chu Bei didn't say anything else. Instead, he looked at Linley. Disciple, focus on attuning to the power that I, as your master, have bestowed upon you. Once you have fully developed this power, you will be the most powerful person in the world. With a draconic roar, the 5-clawed golden dragon transformed back into Linley's appearance. He once more knelt down in front of Chu Bei, his face filled with excitement. Your disciple thanks you, Master, for your inheritance. In the future, I will definitely work hard on training in the power of the ancestral dragon. Linley, congratulations on having such a powerful master. The group of children all looked at Linley enviously. Master, just now, what did you snatch from them? Linley seemed to have thought of something. Raising his head, he looked curiously at Chu Bei. A shadow mouse of the 9th rank. Chu Bei opened his palm, and there was a little mouse lying in his palm. It had already lost its consciousness. As Chu Bei's palm began to glow with divine light, strands of light entered the shadow mouse body. Slowly, the shadow mouse aura began to grow stronger. My child, the shadow mouse of the 9th rank opened his eyes. A weak voice came out of his mouth, and a frantic look was on his face. He even forgot to thank Chu Bei. With a swish sound, he pierced through the air, flying towards Baruch's manor. Master, why is he going to our place? Staring in the direction the shadow mouse had flown, Linley's eyes widened. Let's go. His child is going to be your future little companion. Chu Bei had a hint of a smile on his face. Little companion? Linley's frown deepened. But just as Linley's words came out of his mouth, an invisible force lifted him, Hogg, Wharton, Hillman, and the others into the air. In the blink of an eye, they landed in front of an old room within Baruch's manor. That's Linley, Hogg, and the others followed Chu Bei into the room. All of them were stunned, staring at the corner of the room. Right now, the shadow mouse from before was licking a newborn mouse that was still struggling to open its eyes. Master, is that her child? Linley looked at Chu Bei. For some reason, aside from sensing a strong sense of motherly love from this shadow mouse of the 9th rank, Linley also felt a sense of determination, as though this mouse was bidding farewell to its child. Instantly, a strange sense of grief filled his heart. Benefactor, thank you for saving my life. The shadow mouse of the 9th rank held the newborn mouse in its mouth as it walked over to Chu Bei. Those two killed my husband. I must avenge him. Please take my poor child in. As his desolate words came out, the shadow mouse of the 9th rank fell to his knees, kowtowing repeatedly to Chu Bei, his eyes filled with pleading. Based on your power, do you think you'll be able to kill 2 saint-level experts? Chu Bei glanced calmly at the shadow mouse of the 9th rank, then said, How long has it been since your husband died? 2 hours. The shadow mouse of the 9th rank took a deep breath. His words were filled with killing intent, as though he wanted nothing more than to rip out Tyron and Rudy and drink their blood. Take me to the place where your husband died. Chu Bei's words were calm. Benefactor, you, the shadow mouse of the 9th rank, had a puzzled look on his face, and his eyes were filled with confusion. Lead the way. You'll know soon enough. Chu Bei clasped his hands behind his back, not saying anything else. All right. Although the shadow mouse of the 9th rank didn't understand what Chu Bei was planning, he knew that Chu Bei was his benefactor, and that he was going to entrust his child to him. After a moment's hesitation, he transformed into a ray of light and flew towards the direction of the magical beast forest. Roughly 30 kilometers away from Wushan Township, in the air above the magical beast forest, the shadow mouse of the 9th rank, Hogg, Hillman, and Doring Coward all floated out from the ring. All of them had looks of confusion on their faces, but all of them were focused in front of them. Chu Bei hovered in the air, scanning the area with his gaze, then slowly closed his eyes. Rumble. After a moment of silence, Chu Bei suddenly stretched out his hand and tapped outwards with a finger. In the next instant, the illusory image of a 30,000-meter-long, 5-clawed golden dragon appeared at the tip of his finger. Its appearance was identical to the divine dragon that Linley had transformed into, but in terms of aura, it was trillions of times more powerful than Linley's. Under the gazes of everyone present, the golden dragon in front of Chu Bei suddenly opened its enormous maw towards the heavens. Instantly, the skies changed color. Rumble. Amidst the rumbling, the originally clear sky in the distant sky was instantly enveloped by dark clouds. Soon, the entire magical beast forest was covered by those dark clouds, giving off a sinister, terrifying feeling, as though they were in the depths of hell. The wild beasts of the forest all prostrated themselves on the ground, staring up at the heavens in terror, trembling. This was an instinctive fear, as though their emperor was descending upon the world. Boom! The illusory divine dragon swung its tail, and the sound of thunder filled the heavens. Lightning was used for killing, and life and death accompanied each other. It could extinguish souls, but it could also summon souls. In the plane of shrouded heaven, he had used the power of lightning to revive Fairy Rosy Cloud. What level is this person at? He's actually able to affect the weather all by himself. Doring Gwart stared dazedly at Chu Bei's back, a look of shock on his face. Lord Father, quick, look, it's raining. Linley pointed towards the skies. No, this isn't rain. When have you ever seen rain shine? This is simply lightning. Hogg took a deep breath. Staring at the raindrops of lightning all around him, he sucked in a cold breath. It really is lightning. His lordship truly is incredible. What is he planning to do? Hillman's face was filled with amazement as well. He stared blankly at Chu Bei in midair. Lord Father, these lightning droplets don't seem to have much power. When they hit my body, they really are like raindrops. Linley stretched out his hand, allowing the lightning droplets to strike him. Not only are they harmless, they are extremely beneficial to my training. I tried to absorb these lightning droplets into my body, and all the cells in my body actually began to expand. My level of insight, which has been stagnant for so many years, is actually showing signs of breaking through. Hillman's voice was filled with excitement. Doring Coward and the Shadow Mouse of the ninth rank were silent, but their gazes were fixed on the strange phenomenon in the skies. Frowning slightly, they seemed to be pondering something. Thud, thud, thud. Right at this moment, a series of hurried footsteps could be heard from afar. From afar, multiple figures could be seen riding on flying beasts. Who is that person? What is he doing? He's standing in midair. He's a saint-level combatant. What's going on with these rain droplets? They're actually glowing, and it seems as though there's some sort of miraculous power hidden within them. One group after another gathered. Amongst them were armored soldiers of the Empire wielding greatswords, disciples of various sects who had come out for training, and merchants who had taken a shortcut. Obviously, no matter which group of people it was, they were all attracted by the commotion caused by Chu Bei. Amongst these people, the most powerful were warriors or magi of the 8th rank, while the weakest were at least of the 2nd or 3rd rank. Good heavens! Could it be that he's the one who caused this strange phenomenon? Why is it that I've never seen or heard of a saint-level combatant like him? The people who had arrived all had looks of astonishment on their faces, staring at the rolling thunder in the skies, and then at Chu Bei, who was standing there with his hands clasped behind his back. They all gulped. This sort of thing simply couldn't be man-made. Those people are from the Radiant Church and the Cult of Shadows, and the soldiers of the Kingdom of Funlai. Hillman quickly recognized the 3 groups of people who had arrived. He couldn't help but let out a cry of surprise. Soul return. Suddenly, under the watchful gazes of thousands of people, Chu Bei's hands began to dance in a rhythmic pattern. And then, 2 heavy syllables rang out in the skies like thunder. Hearing these words, Doring Coward, Hillman, Hogg, and everyone else trembled. Staring at the skies, they didn't even blink. In particular, the Shadow Mouse of the 9th rank seemed to have guessed something. He clenched his paws, and his expression suddenly changed. He was incomparably nervous. Chapter 509. Is this saint-level combatant summoning a soul? Crazy. He can't be reviving a dead person, can he? How is that possible? I've never heard of anyone who can do that. Right, a dead person is dead. How can he be revived? That's right. Even our Lord Pope doesn't have this ability, much less him. After the surrounding spectators recovered from their shock, they all began to discuss amongst themselves. Some of their words were even filled with mockery. Could it be that Master is trying to revive that dead stone-eater rat of the 9th rank? Little Linley seemed to have thought of something. His eyes widened as he muttered to himself, his face filled with astonishment. Chu Bei ignored the crowd. His hands continued to wave in an orderly manner. Gradually, with his body as the center, the spiritual energy in the air began to surge violently. Rumble. Another earth-shattering explosion. Within the dark clouds, the originally slowly descending lightning droplets suddenly began to pour down like a downpour. Amidst the dense crackling of electricity, the spiritual energy in the air above the magical beast forest became hundreds of times denser. Then, under everyone's shocked gazes, a large number of blue runes appeared within the rain-like lightning droplets. These runes gathered together, as if carrying some sort of mystical power, and began to emit a resplendent light. Buzz, buzz. Amidst the strange rumbling sounds, countless specks of light, different from the lightning droplets, began to gather from all directions until they formed into the shape of a rat. Damn, what is that thing? It's not a human, it's a rat. Oh no, it's a rat's soul. Could it be that this mysterious saint-level combatant isn't reviving a human, but a rat? I knew it. Even the Lord Pope doesn't have the ability to revive a dead person. How could he possibly do it? He's just reviving a rat. What do you know? Even if he's reviving a rat, he's reviving a life. This kind of ability is already extremely heaven-defying, alright? No, this rat isn't normal. It's a stone-eater rat, and judging from the ripples of its soul, it should have been more powerful than me when it was alive. It's a stone-eater rat of the 9th rank. What? A magical beast of the 9th rank. Impossible. This is much harder than reviving a normal person. Looking at the rat's soul that had taken shape in the sky, the crowd of onlookers first let out sighs of laughter. However, when they heard the words of an 8th-grade warrior and confirmed that it was a 9th-grade stone-eater rat, their expressions changed abruptly, as if they were struck by lightning. Their faces were filled with shock. "My lord, he really resurrected it." Hogg and Hillman looked at each other. Their eyes were filled with deep shock. Before this, they had never dared to imagine that there was someone in this world who could revive the dead. But now, they were witnessing this scene with their own eyes. Moreover, it was a powerful magical beast of the 9th rank that had been resurrected. When I become stronger in the future, will I be able to do the same? Little Linley stared at the skies, a strange look in his eyes, as though he was looking forward to the future. Husband, the shadow mouse of the 9th rank was trembling. When he saw that familiar figure in the distance, he was stunned for a moment, but when he regained his composure, tears began to fall from his eyes. For hours ago, they were waiting quietly at home, waiting for the arrival of the baby. But who would have imagined that before the baby was even born, a calamity would befall them? 2 saint-level combatants actually wanted to forcibly take them as magical beasts. As proud rat kings, they naturally wouldn't agree, whether it was a shadow mouse of the 9th rank or a stone-eater rat of the 9th rank. A fierce battle had begun, but in reality, it was a one-sided battle. No matter how powerful these 2 magical beasts were, they definitely weren't a match for 2 saint-level combatants. What's more, the shadow mouse of the 9th rank was pregnant. In the end, the stone-eater rat of the 9th rank, relying on its powerful defense, was able to tie down the 2 saint-level combatants, giving the shadow mouse enough time to flee. For the sake of the child in her womb, the shadow mouse of the 9th rank had no choice but to leave with tears in his eyes. Next, at Baruch's manor, the child in her womb was born prematurely. However, when she rushed back to the battlefield, all she heard was a loud explosion. Her husband had exploded into a pile of flesh and blood. Afterwards, the shadow mouse of the 9th rank charged towards the 2 saint-level combatants, filled with murderous intent. In the end, it was captured alive by the stellar sword saint, Delong. Right now, atop the giant boulder, the shadow mouse of the 9th rank was calling out the 2 words husband non-stop. Its little body was trembling, but at the same time, one could hear the joy in its voice. Its gaze towards Chu Bei was filled with indescribable gratitude. Condense. Chu Bei still didn't pay any attention to the chatter of the people below. A single word rang out from his mouth, shaking the heavens. As Chu Bei's fingertip sent a ray of divine light into the stone-eater rat's soul, the countless bolts of lightning in the sky began to flow towards the soul, slowly seeping into it. In just a few seconds, the stone-eater rat's soul began to solidify. Its flesh and blood began to take shape, and its faintly discernible aura began to slowly grow stronger. Rumble. Yet another low, muffled sound. The stone-eater rat's body had completely solidified, and it had completely fused with the soul. First the soul, then the body. It has truly come back to life. It's no different from us. Sensing the vitality of the stone-eater rat, everyone was stupefied. I didn't die. The revived stone-eater rat was clearly in a daze. Its empty eyes scanned the surroundings, and when its gaze fell upon the shadow mouse of the 9th rank, a look of intense joy appeared in its eyes. Husband, you really did come back to life. This is wonderful. The shadow mouse of the 9th rank found it hard to remain calm. His voice was filled with excitement, and with a swish sound, he left behind a series of afterimages as he instantly appeared in front of the stone-eater rat. Child, how is our child? Seeing the shadow mouse, the stone-eater rat seemed to realize something, and it immediately asked, He's fine. Our child is fine. After speaking, the shadow mouse of the 9th rank led the stone-eater rat in kowtowing towards Chu Bei. "My lord, we are unable to repay the great kindness you have shown our entire family. If you don't mind, our entire family will follow you in life and death. I just did it in passing. In addition, your child is destined to be with me. Let him stay by my disciple's side and grow up together." Chu Bei looked calmly at the two rats as he spoke. "As you wish, senior." The shadow mouse of the 9th rank said with incomparable respect, "My lord, my child doesn't have a name yet. You are the benefactor of our entire family. Please bestow him a name." "Let's call him BB," Chu Bei said without hesitation. "My lord, I am Nick Dabo of the Radiant Church, a light-style magus of the 8th rank. On behalf of the Radiant Church, I would like to invite you for a chat. My lord, I am Oxus of the Cult of Shadows, a darkness-style magus of the 8th rank. On behalf of the Cult of Shadows, I would like to invite you as a guest. My lord, I am the commander of the 1st Army of the Kingdom of Funlai, a warrior of the 8th rank. Would you have the time?" Just as Chu Bei and the two rats landed next to him, the leaders of the Radiant Church, the Cult of Shadows, and the Kingdom of Funlai's army all stepped forward and extended their invitations. Naturally, the people of the other powers wanted to befriend him as well, but because of the previous 3 powers, they could only watch from afar. "My lord, if you can even bring a dead person back to life, you must be able to create a new body for me, freeing me." Doran Cowart stared at Chu Bei, extremely excited. His eyes were filled with eagerness, and he didn't look at all like someone who had lived for 5,000 years. "Of course I am able to do that." Chu Bei looked at Doran Cowart. Laughing, he said, "But I won't help you. Just stay by Linley's side and wait for him to grow. Then, he will come to help you." "My lord, you truly have a good plan." Doran Cowart sighed. He naturally understood what Chu Bei was trying to do. Chu Bei wanted him to stay by Linley's side and protect him. Rumble, just as the people of the Radiant Church and the Cult of Shadows were once again extending their invitations to Chu Bei, an enormous black sickle suddenly emerged from the dark clouds above them. It was unknown where this sickle had come from, but it instantly pierced through the air and hovered there, emanating a terrifying, soul-shaking aura. "Quick, look. What is that?" The appearance of the black sickle instantly attracted everyone's attention. When they felt the aura it released, a sense of inexplicable fear welled up in their hearts. It gave people the feeling that it came from an ominous place, and it carried a curse. "It is dead, and its soul has entered the underworld. But you have summoned it back, which is against the rules. You should be punished." Just as everyone was talking, a very low voice came from the distant sky. This voice seemed to come from the 9 Nether Abyss. It made people's hearts turn cold. "Underworld? What is that place? Could it be that that's where we'll go after we die? Who is the speaker? He is there again. Is he a living person or a dead person?" Hearing the cold voice that suddenly sounded, everyone was terrified. They all stared at the black sickle in the sky, trying to find the owner behind it. Chapter 510. The Netherworld? Can it be the higher planes? Within the coiling dragon ring, Doran Cowart seemed to know something, and his face changed. Darling has already come back to life. Nobody can take him away. The shadow mouse of the 9th rank raised his head to look at the black sickle, his voice filled with determination. Clang. No more sounds came from the skies, but that enormous black sickle moved. It tore through the air, instantly appearing above the heads of the shadow mouse and the stone-eater rat. Don't harm Darling." The shadow mouse of the 9th rank howled. But just as the spiritual energy in his body was preparing to resist, the black sickle trembled, and a ray of black light poured down, suppressing him and preventing him from moving. Right at this moment, the tip of the black sickle pointed directly at the stone-eater rat of the 9th rank. Sensing the terrifying aura emanating from the sickle, the stone-eater rat's face was filled with helplessness. In the face of absolute power, there was no way it could fight back at all. "Ally, take care of BB." The stone-eater rat of the 9th rank glanced at the shadow mouse one last time, then glanced at the black sickle above its head. Slowly, it closed its eyes, as though it was welcoming something. "My lord, I beg you, please save darling." At this moment, the shadow mouse of the ninth rank seemed to have thought of something, and he hurriedly begged Chu Bei, his voice hoarse. Clang! Just as the sickle was about to land on the stone-eater rat's body, a fist appeared out of nowhere, sweeping outwards. With a metallic clang, the black sickle was shattered into countless fragments by the fist, finally dissipating in the air above the stone-eater rat's head. And then, the terrifying pressure that had enveloped the shadow mouse of the ninth rank disappeared. Thank you, my lord." The shadow mouse of the ninth rank once more thanked Chu Bei. He knew that it must have been him who had intervened. Aside from him, there was no one else who could have done this. "Who are you?" The black sickle shattered, and in the distant skies, an enormous black hole appeared. From within the hole, that same low voice once more rang out. Immediately afterwards, a figure whose entire body was covered in black mist slowly walked out. Standing in the air, why is there another saint-level expert? Can it be that he came from the netherworld? Is he alive or dead? When I return, I must report this matter to the Pope immediately. Looking at the figure shrouded in black fog that was already facing Chu Bei in the sky, the crowd of spectators sucked in a breath of cold air, their expressions becoming more and more shocked. A mere underworld emissary. Not to mention you. Even if the Death Sovereign were to come personally, he would not be able to take her away from me. Chu Bei looked calmly at the figure wrapped in black fog. His eyes were filled with contempt, as if he did not care about the other party at all. "How dare you?" Hearing Chu Bei's words, the underworld messenger immediately shouted. In the next moment, tens of thousands of crows formed out of thin air in front of him. They flapped their wings and charged towards Chu Bei with the aura of death. However, these densely packed nether crows that blotted out the sky and covered the earth did not even get close to Chu Bei. It was as if they were hit by a terrifying invisible force, and with a boom, they directly dissipated. Seeing this scene, the underworld messenger's eyes that were shrouded in black fog shot out 2 rays of bloody light and landed on Chu Bei's body. After frowning, he crossed his hands and waved them around. Swoosh! Following the underworld messenger's loud shout, the sky above the entire magical beast mountain range suddenly changed. The originally dark sky was filled with rolling dark clouds, and now there was a new blood-red light that made people's hearts palpitate. Is this really a saint-level expert's ability? The spectators from the Light Church, the Cult of Darkness, and other forces were shocked as they looked at the sky in a daze. Just as the blood-red light filled the sky, a huge giant that was tens of thousands of feet tall condensed in front of the underworld messenger. This giant was also shrouded in black fog, and his appearance could not be seen clearly. In his hand was a blood-red giant axe. Roar! A loud roar that seemed to come from ancient times came from the mouth of the giant summoned by the underworld messenger, and it reverberated in the sky. The terrifying sound waves reverberated in the mountains, and the forest trees were shaken to the point of shattering. It was like a starving primeval beast, and its roar was filled with heart-palpitating cruelty and brutality, and it was filled with endless destruction and slaughter. It was as if the source of this roar represented the most terrifying disaster in the world. The black giant roared again, and its body moved. 2 rays of red light shot out from its eyes, and after coldly sweeping across the spectators below, it finally stopped on Chu Bei's body. Sounds of friction rang out from its body, and a violent and terrifying aura spread out. Even the Pope would not be able to win against this big guy. Feeling the terrifying aura released by the black fog giant, not only the people from the Light Church, but all the spectators below, including the 2 level 9 mice, were shocked. Rumble! The black fog giant walked in the air, and everywhere it passed by, the void was distorted. In the blink of an eye, its incomparably huge body had already appeared in front of Chu Bei. Swish! The black fog giant swung the blood-red axe in its hand, and at the moment it chopped down, the blood-red light above the magical beast forest surged at the same time and poured into the axe blade. Blood splattered, and all the spectators' hearts trembled. At this moment, under the violent aura of the blood-red axe, Their bodies were suppressed to the point that they could not move. A sense of suffocation arose inexplicably, and it was extremely oppressive. But even in the face of such a terrifying axe, Chu Bei, who was in the sky, did not seem to feel any danger at all. Just as the axe blade was about to land on Chu Bei's head, he casually pointed a finger. With a crack, the blood-red axe shattered from Chu Bei's fingertip. The crack spread out very quickly, and it extended to the black fog giant's body. Rumble. Not only did the blood-red axe explode, but the black fog giant, which was tens of thousands of feet tall, also exploded. In an instant, the black fog of blood spread out in the sky like raindrops, and it was frightening. Splat! Instantly, the netherworld emissary spat out a mouthful of blood from the black fog, and his aura became disordered. How is this possible? The black fog around the netherworld emissary's body continued to surge, and his voice trembled with terror. His blood-red eyes, which were staring at Chu Bei, were filled with disbelief. He had never imagined that he would encounter such an existence in the Yulan continent. If you don't leave now, even if the chief sovereign of death comes, he won't be able to save you. Chu Bei suddenly focused his gaze on the netherworld emissary. A beam of light shot out from his eyes, and it actually dispersed the black fog around the netherworld emissary's body. This was a middle-aged man. His face was covered with a scar, and his eyes were blood-red. Just looking at them was enough to cause terror in anyone's heart. You have broken the rules. No matter who you are, this matter will not be easily forgotten. The netherworld emissary gave Chu Bei a final, fearful look, then returned to the hole and disappeared. Did the netherworld emissary lose? After a while, the Radiant Church, the Cult of Shadows, and the other powers came back to their senses. All of them stared blankly at the hole in the sky that had just disappeared. At the same time, the manifestation behind Chu Bei disappeared, and he landed next to the two rats of the 9th rank. Husband, it's fine. We're fine. The Shadow Mouse of the 9th rank hugged the Stone-Eater rat of the 9th rank, then once more kowtowed to Chu Bei. My lord, on behalf of the Radiant Church, the Cult of Shadows, I extend an invitation to you. I don't have time. You can go back to wherever you came from. Not waiting for the Radiant Church and the Cult of Shadows to finish speaking, Chu Bei waved his hand and interrupted them. After speaking, Chu Bei waved his hand, leading Linley, Hogg, Hillman, and the others to fly back to Baruch's manor. Staring at Chu Bei's departing back, the faces of the Radiant Church and the Cult of Shadows all turned ugly. In the Yulan continent, their status was extremely high. No one had ever dared to refuse their requests, but the person in front of them didn't even give them a chance to finish speaking. If they hadn't personally witnessed this person's power, they probably would have flown into a rage on the spot. Let's go back to the Radiant Church. The leaders of the Radiant Church and the Cult of Shadows simultaneously gave the order, then quickly left. Chapter 511. The top floor of the Radiant Temple. A skinny, bald, middle-aged man dressed in a long white robe was calmly seated at the head of the table. It was the Holy Emperor of the Radiant Church, Haydn's. He was carefully listening to the report from his subordinate. When he finished, his previously calm face began to ripple with emotion. He can revive a dead Stone-Eater rat of the 9th rank? Someone from the netherworld has come? Holy Emperor Haydn's rose from his chair, staring intently at his subordinate. His face suddenly turned incomparably solemn, and he barked, "Is this true?" Enveloped by Haydn's aura, the subordinate's legs immediately turned to jelly, and he fell to his knees. He hurriedly said, "Your Holiness, how could I dare to lie to you? Your subordinate personally witnessed this. It is absolutely true. The Cult of Shadows, Commander Finlai, and many others all witnessed it. How could there be such a fellow in the Yulan continent? What is his background?" Holy Emperor Haydn's mumbled to himself, his frown growing deeper and deeper. "Go. Without alerting him, investigate him thoroughly." "Yes, Your Holiness." The subordinate clasped his fists, bowed deeply, then quickly left. The Yulan continent primarily consisted of 4 great empires, 3 major powers, and 2 major alliances. Although there were still a few small kingdoms and independent powers, the only ones who could truly control the future of the Yulan continent were them. These four great empires were the O'Brien Empire, the Yulan Empire, the Ralt Empire, and the Rhine Empire. The two major alliances referred to the Holy Union and the Dark Alliance, which worshipped the Sovereign of Light and the Sovereign of Darkness respectively. Their main areas of influence were to the west and south of the mountain range of magical beasts. Ever since the creation of the two major alliances, they had been embroiled in countless conflicts. These three major powers referred to the goddess temple of the far northern ice cap, the Great Plains of the far east, and the Anarchic lands. The goddess temple of the far northern ice cap was located in the north, while the Great Plains of the far east was located in the south. Both were guarded by prime saints. Thus, although they were relatively isolated, no one dared to invade them. Currently, Chubei's Wushan Township belonged to the Kingdom of Fanlai, which was the largest kingdom within the Holy Union. Did you hear? Something big happened in the mountain range of magical beasts. I was there at the time. How could I not know? At that time, we were hunting in the outskirts. But the weather changed. The clouds were rolling and thunder. What? Thunder and lightning? How could there be such a thing? TSK, that's incredible. That was a saint-level expert using a secret technique to resurrect a 9th-grade stone-eater rat. Moreover, it had even attracted people from the netherworld. That person from the underworld was also a Saint Realm expert. After a great battle, that Saint Realm expert from the underworld was no match for the Saint Realm expert and was defeated in the end. The people of the Radiant Church and the Cult of Shadows all saw it. Underworld? How come I've never heard of such a place on our continent? Also, what is the background of this mysterious sanctuary expert? It's said that when we die, we go to the underworld. As for this saint-level combatant, I don't know where he came from, but he seems to be connected to the Baruch clan of Wushan Township. 6 hours had passed since Chu Bei had resurrected the level 9 stone-devouring rat. The spectators who had witnessed the entire process began to recount the story when they left the magical beast forest and returned to their respective cities or forces. In just a few short hours, Chu Bei had become the topic of conversation in the kingdom of Fanlai. In fact, even the people of the four great empires began to discuss him. After all, the appearance of a saint-level combatant was no small matter, much less one who had the ability to resurrect a magical beast of the 9th rank. As soon as news of the events in the magical beast forest had spread, the Radiant Church and the three major trading unions of the Holy Alliance had begun to secretly investigate Chu Bei. Unfortunately, in the end, they hadn't been able to obtain any useful information. Fanlai City, the capital of the Kingdom of Fanlai, as well as the holy capital of the Holy Alliance. The headquarters of the Radiant Church was located in the western part of Fanlai City. In the entire Yulan continent, Fanlai City was one of the top 5 major cities. It occupied an extremely large area and had long ago housed over 10 million residents. In terms of layout, it was primarily divided into the eastern part and the western part. The eastern part was administered by the Kingdom of Fanlai, while the western part was administered by the Radiant Church. Master, in all my years, this is my first time visiting Fanlai City. It really is a bustling place. Wushan Township can't compare at all. On the main street of the eastern part of the city, little Linley followed behind Chu Bei, looking around, his little face filled with excitement. In this group, aside from Chu Bei and Linley, there was also little Wharton, Hillman, the stone-eater rat and shadow mouse of the 9th rank, as well as the recently born Bibi. As for Hogg, he had stayed behind in Wushan Township and hadn't come. Haha, quick, look. There are 2 rats standing on the shoulders of that baby. Not just 2. He's holding one in his hands. But from the looks of it, that little rat just opened its eyes. Hey, that person looks so familiar. It's him. Don't be so surprised. Who is he? That mysterious saint-level combatant who defeated the Netherworld emissary in the magical beast forest. Can it be that that rat is the 9th rank rat he resurrected? Good heavens, then hurry up and follow him. He actually came to Fanlai City. On the main street of the Fragrant Pavilion, the pedestrians quickly noticed the stone-eater rat and shadow mouse on the shoulders of little Linley. But when someone recognized Chu Bei's identity, everyone's eyes focused on Chu Bei's body in unison, and clamorous exclamations rose from all around. "My lord, they recognized you." Seeing that more and more people were following behind them, Hilton couldn't help but speak out. Ever since they had entered Funlai City, they had been constantly hearing about Chu Bei's exploits. "So what if they recognize me? As long as they don't disturb us, it's fine. No need to pay them any mind." Chu Bei didn't chase away the people behind him. After all, to him, this wasn't a bad thing. In fact, it would increase his reputation points. The second mission of the system required both his reputation points and the reputation points of the All-Heaven shop to reach a total of 90 in the Yulon continent. The entire main street of the Fragrant Pavilion was paved with smooth limestone and was wide enough for multiple carriages to pass side by side. On both sides of the street, there were tea houses, clothing stores, weapon stores, and all sorts of other businesses. Soon, Chu Bei's group came to a halt in front of a large building. Funlai Hall. What is he doing here? Can it be that this saint-level combatant is going to establish his own school? That has to be the case. Otherwise, why would he come here? Based on what I know, any saint-level combatant who establishes his own school will receive the full support of the kingdom. Aside from seizing land, the kingdom will also help advertise the school. Isn't this all for the sake of roping in the saint-level combatant? Because a large group of people had gathered in front of the main gate, it didn't take long for the Funlai Hall to take notice. When the manager of the Funlai Hall learned that Chu Bei was the saint-level combatant from the Forest of Magical Beasts, he immediately began to treat him with respect. And then, after probing a bit more about Chu Bei's power, the process quickly concluded. 2 hours later, in the southern part of the eastern part of the city, a new school was established. It was to be known as the All-Heaven Shop. At almost the same time, the army of the Kingdom of Funlai began to roam through the various cities, spreading the word about this new school. In the future, the All-Heaven Shop will be your home. When I am not here, you must guard this place well. But of course, if you encounter an expert you cannot defeat, your life is your #1 priority. Within the main hall of the All-Heaven Shop, Chu Bei's gaze fell upon the 2 rats of the 9th rank. He said these words calmly. "Yes, benefactor." The 2 rats of the 9th rank simultaneously nodded. "You are now part of the All-Heaven Shop. From now on, you can call me Boss Chu." After calmly saying these words, Chu Bei turned to look at Hillman. "In the future, you will be the manager of the All-Heaven Shop. I'll have to trouble you with all matters, big or small. Bring those children of Wushan Township here. They won't regret joining the All-Heaven Shop." "I will do as you say, master." Hillman immediately changed his tune. "This is the 9 Heavens art. It is a foundational training technique that I have selected. When those children arrive, you can pass it on to them." As soon as his words came out, Chu Bei waved his right hand, and a thick, exquisite book landed in Hillman's hands. By nightfall, the All-Heaven Shop was filled with quite a few people. Of course, these people were all residents of Wushan Township. They had brought their children to join the All-Heaven Shop, which had just been established. "Boss Chu, this 9 Heavens art seems to be different from the techniques I've seen before." Within the main hall, Hillman looked at Chu Bei, puzzled. The techniques he had seen before were separated from the techniques used by warriors and magi. But this 9 Heavens art didn't seem to have such a division. It was like a completely new training system, different from the techniques passed down from the Yulon continent. "Just train according to it." Chu Bei smiled knowingly. Year 9990 of the Yulon calendar, July 22nd. On this day, the All-Heaven Shop was established in the Yulon continent, the top floor of the Radiant Temple. "Your Holiness, the saint-level combatant in the mountain range of magical beasts has established a school in the eastern part of the city, known as the All-Heaven Shop. However, we still haven't been able to find out anything about him." A short, stout man dressed in a robe was respectfully kneeling in front of Pope Haydn's. "Based on your subordinate's conjecture, most likely this mysterious expert has been hiding in some unknown place, training in seclusion. Only recently did he emerge." "The All-Heaven Shop? Does this organization sell things? What does it sell? And who are the people?" Haydn's frowned. He was very concerned about the birth of every new organization within the Holy Alliance. Once there was a possibility that the Radiant Church would be threatened, he would immediately eradicate it. Your Holiness, the All-Heaven Shop has just been established. Aside from that mysterious combatant, the most powerful person is only a warrior of the 6th rank. As for the disciples, they are all children from Wushan Township, and the oldest is only 14 years old. The long-haired man reported, I understand. Haydn's nodded. Although the All-Heaven Shop is currently nothing special, he is still a saint-level combatant. You can represent the Radiant Church in congratulating him. Also, have him find some time to come to the Radiant Church. Tell him that I wish to make friends with him. As his words came out, Haydn's closed his eyes. Yes, Your Holiness. The short, fat man bowed, then left. The Imperial Palace of the Kingdom of Funlai. The Imperial Palace was divided into an inner palace and an outer palace. The outer palace was surrounded by a deep red wall and some male guards. After entering the outer palace, after passing through a golden wall that was more than 10 meters tall, one would arrive at the inner palace. The inner palace was filled with many majestic palaces, indicating its status as the core of the Imperial Palace. On the side of the high golden wall, teams of guards who had undergone strict training were patrolling back and forth. At this moment, within the main hall of the inner palace, a middle-aged man dressed in a dragon robe and wearing a crown was seated at the head of the table. The royal clan of the Kingdom of Funlai was the Bullen clan. This middle-aged man was the King of Funlai, Clyde Bullen, a combatant of the 9th rank. Your Imperial Majesty, that saint-level combatant's All-Heaven Shop has already been established. It is located in an area within the eastern part of the city. A military general said, prepare some generous gifts for him on my behalf. Also, tell him that I wish to invite him to the Imperial Palace for a chat. I really want to know how he was able to revive a magical beast of the 9th rank. Clyde narrowed his eyes as he spoke. Yes. The military general left. Chapter 512. Yulon Calendar, Year 9990. July 23rd. Early in the morning, the All-Heaven Shop was packed with people. Dabo of the Radiant Church has come to congratulate you on the establishment of the All-Heaven Shop. Commander Nile of the Kingdom of Funlai has come to congratulate you on the establishment of the All-Heaven Shop. The Kingdom of Yak congratulates you on the establishment of the All-Heaven Shop. The Kingdom of Shilua congratulates you on the establishment of the All-Heaven Shop. The Kingdom of Tiz congratulates you on the establishment of the All-Heaven Shop. The Dawson Conglomerate congratulates you on the establishment of the All-Heaven Shop. It wasn't just the Radiant Church and the Imperial family of Funlai who had come to congratulate him. The other kingdoms of the Alliance had all sent representatives as well. Of course, there was no lack of major powers from the Alliance who had come as well, such as the 3 major trading unions. Master, there are so many people. Within the All-Heaven Shop, Linley was by Chu Bei's side, staring at the endless stream of people who had come to congratulate him. His little face was a bit nervous. Clearly, this was his first time experiencing such a large crowd. Fortunately, Hillman and the other residents of Wushan Township were there to help greet them. Otherwise, it probably would have been a complete mess. The space-time wheel has been activated. The host is about to enter training. Before Chu Bei could go up and greet these people of the Alliance, the system's voice rang out in his mind. Here it comes again. Hearing the system's voice, Chu Bei frowned. As soon as he let out a resigned sigh, the space-time wheel appeared, and a powerful gravitational force that even he found hard to resist instantly pulled him into the space-time wheel. In the final moments before leaving, he heard Linley's frantic calls, asking him where he was going. This wasn't his first time entering the space-time wheel. The amount of energy contained within the space-time wheel was simply too terrifying. Even though he was at the peak of the 16th rank, he still felt his heart tremble. If the space-time wheel were to be classified as a weapon, it would most likely be on the same level as an immortal emperor weapon. In fact, it might even be superior. Rumble. Rumble. What made Chu Bei rejoice was that he did not feel that the training time this time was too long. When he finished his training and left the All-Heaven City, The All-Heaven shop was still the same. It was just that in his memories before he went on the adventure, there was a sea of people, a boiling cauldron of voices, extremely lively. But in front of him, it was the complete opposite, a lifeless atmosphere. Rumble. In the northern region of the All-Heaven shop, buildings were collapsing one after another, filling the air with dust and sand. It was clear that there were people fighting and killing each other there. Chu Bei released his divine sense for the first time, and after perceiving what was happening in that area, his face instantly became gloomy. At this moment, on the ruins to the north of the house, there were several figures fighting fiercely. On one side, there were 7 figures draped in black robes. Their appearances could not be distinguished. The spiritual energy fluctuations coming from these 7 people were exactly the same, as if they had cultivated the same cultivation method. Judging from their moves, they were obviously warriors. Their auras had already reached level 9. Upon closer inspection, there was a similar pattern on the back of their black robes. It was a coiled blood-purple snake. On the other side was a middle-aged man and 2 rats. How did the All-Heaven shop offend the Purple Snake organization for no reason? One of the top 4 assassin organizations. Perhaps it wasn't the All-Heaven shop that offended the Purple Snake organization. Instead, someone paid a high price to hire the Purple Snake organization to destroy the All-Heaven shop. No matter what, the All-Heaven shop is in danger. Speaking of which, where did Linley go? Why hasn't there been any news of him in the past 2 days? It's as though he suddenly vanished from the face of the earth. That's true. Linley's talent really is terrifying. He's only 16 years old, but he's already a warrior of the 9th rank. In addition, after transforming into the ancestral dragon, he's able to fight evenly with ordinary saints. So what if he's powerful? Right now, the All-Heaven shop is in danger, but we don't know where he is. If he doesn't come back soon, everyone in the All-Heaven shop will probably die at the hands of those 7 from the Purple Snake organization. 10 years ago, the All-Heaven shop was established. But on the second day of its establishment, the owner of the All-Heaven shop disappeared without a trace, becoming the biggest joke of the All-Heaven shop. If one day he comes back and sees the ruins, what will he think? More and more people were gathering around the ruins. Seeing the intense battle, they all sighed incessantly. Some were sympathetic, some were gloating, and some were indifferent, just watching the show. Rumble. In the middle of the chaotic battlefield, a heaven-shaking explosion could be heard. 3 figures smashed viciously onto the ground, and blood stained the ground. Uncle Hillman, Wharton was already 12 years old. He was no longer the toddler who couldn't even walk properly. He hurriedly ran forward, a look of worry on his face, but more than that, he was filled with hatred towards those 7 figures. "Young master, I'm fine." Hillman wiped away the blood at the corner of his mouth. He stood up once more, staring coldly at the 7 from the Purple Snake organization. In the past 10 years, Hillman had trained in the 9 Heavens incantation and become a combatant of the 9th rank. Unlike humans, the Shadow Mouse and the Stone-Eater Rat were still of the 9th rank, but they weren't too far away from breaking through to the Saint level. If they were up against an ordinary combatant of the 9th rank, the 3 of them might be able to fight. But these 7 assassins in front of them all trained in the same technique, and their teamwork was flawless. When the 7 of them joined forces, they could even fight against a Saint-level combatant. You took their money, so you had to help them avoid disaster. You can only blame yourselves for being unlucky. The 7 assassins of the Purple Snake organization stood in a row, their voices cold as ice. At the same time, they moved towards Hillman and the 2 rats of the 9th rank. "Did Clade ask you to attack?" Hillman's face was expressionless, his gaze cold. "Clade? What a familiar name." That's the king's name. What? These assassins were hired by His Majesty. Impossible. Why would His Majesty attack the All-Heaven shop? Shh. Don't make wild guesses if you aren't sure. Hearing the name Hillman had just uttered, the surrounding people were all stunned, and then their faces were filled with astonishment. This was because the significance of the name Clade in the kingdom of Funlai was simply too extraordinary. He was the emperor of the kingdom. Not revealing the information of our customers is a basic rule for assassins. As these cold words came out, the 7 assassins of the Purple Snake organization glanced at each other, then simultaneously began to move. Their movements were synchronized, and as they changed positions, they intertwined with each other, as though they were a single entity. Serpent Sword Dance. The 7 assassins of the Purple Snake organization shouted in unison, throwing out the long swords in their hands. With a clang sound, the 7 long swords overlapped, emanating a fierce aura. A terrifying sword aura filled the air, creating a piercing sound as it sliced through the air. Their target was Hillman and the 2 rats of the 9th rank. What a powerful combination technique. They really live up to their reputation as one of the 4 major assassin organizations. Staring at the fierce sword aura, the surrounding people all felt a strange chill run down their spines. Bang! But just as the sword aura was about to sweep past Hillman and the 2 rats of the 9th rank, a dazzling divine aura suddenly appeared. The divine aura flashed past, first annihilating the 7 longswords, then appearing in front of the 7 assassins. The pupils of the 7 assassins contracted, but before they could even make a sound or react, they were pierced through by the divine aura. When the dazzling divine light dissipated, the 7 assassins disappeared along with it. What just happened? Seeing this sudden scene, the surrounding people were all stunned, instantly falling into a state of confusion. They all stared blankly in front of them, speechless. Only after a long time did they recover from their stupor. They looked around, as though searching for something. Look, someone appeared. Who is he? Could it be that the light just now was his technique? Was he the one who killed the 7 demons of the Purple Snake organization? He's Boss Chu, the owner of the All Heavens shop, who disappeared for 10 years, has returned. Above the ruins, a young man appeared. His face was expressionless, and his expression was somewhat gloomy. The surrounding people all stared straight at Chu Bei. At first, they were stunned, but when they recognized who he was, they all cried out in shock, their voices filled with astonishment. Boss, you're back. Looking at the figure that looked exactly the same as 10 years ago, Hillman came back to his senses. His voice was trembling, and he was incomparably excited. Those disciples of the All Heavens shop who had been standing far away, under Hillman's beckoning, all ran towards Chu Bei and knelt down to pay their respects. Of course, there were some disciples who had never seen Chu Bei before, and their faces were filled with apprehension. Boss Chu, Lord Hog is dead. Young Master Linley is probably in a bad situation right now. Those 7 assassins must have been sent by Clade. Young Master Linley's disappearance for 2 days must have had something to do with Clade. Hillman's face was filled with anxiety. 10 years, huh? Chu Bei murmured to himself, looking calmly at Hillman. Gatemaster, actually, young Master Linley's mother didn't die because she had a difficult labor. That year, when the madam was pregnant, because the medical conditions in Wushan Township were too poor, Lord Hog took the madam to Funlai City. But just as the madam gave birth to Wharton, a group of mysterious people appeared and took the madam away. Lord Hog was outnumbered and was only able to save Wharton. But according to what Lord Hog said at that time, he saw that one of the assassins had the mark of a red spider on his arm. After speaking to this point, Hillman took a deep breath, then continued, Lord Hog, as the successor to the Dragonblood warrior clan of Baruch, chose to endure for the sake of preserving his clan's lineage. Until you appeared, established the All Heavens shop, and took young Master Linley as your disciple. Lord Hog no longer had anything to worry about. The same day you left, he began to investigate this matter. Afterwards, following the trail of the red spider mark, Lord Hog finally found the person behind the kidnapping of the madam. That year, the mastermind behind the assassination attempt was the younger brother of the current king of Funlai, Clade, Duke Patterson. But unfortunately, Lord Hog's assassination attempt failed, and he was surrounded instead. Heavily injured, he came to me. Before dying, he repeatedly warned me that only after young Master Linley broke through to the 9th rank would I tell him the truth. Just half a month ago, young Master Linley successfully broke through. When he learned that Lord Hogg had died, as well as the truth behind his mother's death, he immediately sought an opportunity to kill Duke Patterson. The next day, when he returned, he told me that the true mastermind behind the assassination attempt wasn't Duke Patterson, but rather the current king of Funlai, Clade. 2 days ago, young Master Linley left without saying a word. But up until now, he still hasn't returned. If I'm not mistaken, the reason he left this time was to go find Clade. After speaking, Hillman looked frantically at Chu Bei. Boss, 2 days have passed, but young Master Linley still hasn't returned. I'm afraid something has happened. Chapter 5:13. Uncle Hillman, just now, you said that father, he's dead? That can't be true. That can't be true. Mother didn't die because she gave birth to me. Why didn't you and Big Brother tell me? Hearing Hillman's words, little Wharton's eyes turned red. Clenching his fists, he raised his head and stared in the direction of the imperial palace of Funlai, his eyes filled with hatred. Did I hear wrong? His Majesty Clade sent people to capture Linley's mother? No way. Why would His Majesty Clade do such a thing? Can it be that there's something special about Linley's mother? What's more, it seems Linley's father died at the hands of Duke Patterson. If that's the case, then everything makes sense. So Duke Patterson's death was caused by Linley. He's taking revenge. Then in that case, Linley has been missing for the past 2 days. Could it be that he was captured by His Majesty Clade? Or perhaps he has already been killed? Hearing Hillman's words, the spectators around the ruins all revealed looks of astonishment, as though they had heard some sort of inconceivable story. But just as the clamor of discussion began, the entire area suddenly began to tremble. In the skies, the void split apart into a rain of light, like space-time fragments. Under everyone's gazes, the space-time fragments surged toward Chu Bei. In the end, they formed 4 images before him. Quick look. That's Linley and His Majesty Clade. The people around the ruins were instantly attracted by the 4 images formed in front of Chu Bei. Each of them was shocked as they focused on the moving contents of the images. Hillman, the Shadow Mouse of the 9th rank, the Stone-Eater Rat, Little Wharton, and all the other disciples of the All-Heavens shop all stared at the images in astonishment. These images had been created by Chu Bei using the River of Time. Fortunately, the people in the images weren't very powerful. Otherwise, even someone as powerful as him wouldn't necessarily be able to recreate what had happened. The first image. It was a luxurious, exquisite room. Within the room, there were 3 figures. One was dressed in a dragon robe. It was King Clade of Funlai. The second was the military commander, Ransom. The third was Linley. Compared to 10 years ago, the current Linley had become an elegant young man. Every movement he made seemed very capable and experienced. Linley, why are you looking for His Imperial Majesty so late at night? Commander Ransom looked at Linley, frowning. However, just as the general finished speaking, a black shadow flashed past with a swish. This was a palm-sized rat-shaped magical beast. Its speed was very fast, and it instantly appeared in front of Ransom. The rat-shaped magical beast waved its sharp claws and directly cut Ransom's throat. The latter didn't even have time to let out a shrill scream before his eyes completely dimmed. Then, his body fell to the ground with a bang, blood flowing everywhere. Linley, what are you doing? Glancing at the palm-sized rat which had easily killed Ransom, a warrior of the 8th rank, and then landed on Linley's shoulder, Clade was shocked. His face changed, and he retreated a few steps, a look of vigilance on his face. Clade, do you still remember how, 12 years ago, you ordered Patterson to send people to kidnap my mother? Linley stared coldly at Clade, his cold voice echoing in the room. His eyes were filled with a thick, murderous intent. What? That woman was your mother? Clade was stunned, and then a look of terror appeared on his face. You killed Patterson. It seems your memory isn't bad. You haven't forgotten what happened 12 years ago. Linley's eyes were filled with killing intent. Speak. Where is my mother right now? Is she alive, or is she dead? So that's how it is. So that's why you came to kill me? Clade suddenly began to laugh loudly. I did indeed order Patterson to send people to kidnap your mother, but after capturing her, I handed her over to someone else. Someone who neither I nor you can afford to offend. The second image. This was a large courtyard. Right now, an intense battle was taking place within the courtyard. Or, more accurately speaking, a group of powerful generals were attacking a 10-meter-long 5-clawed golden dragon and a palm-sized rat. Rumble, in the battle. Although the generals had the advantage in numbers, in front of the 5-clawed golden dragon and the little rat, they couldn't withstand a single blow. This was a one-sided slaughter. One general after another fell, their blood flowing everywhere. In but a few seconds, the generals had been wiped out. Clade, do you have anything else to rely on? Today, I will definitely torture you to death. I will avenge the blood debt of my father and mother. As his voice rang out, filled with killing intent, the 5-clawed golden dragon transformed back into Linley's original appearance. However, his hands were still dragon claws, and they shone with a cold light. Rumble, rumble. Linley quickly arrived in front of Clade. His draconic claws slashed out viciously towards Clade's waist. But just as the draconic claws were about to pierce through Clade's body, they seemed to encounter a strange resistance. In the next instant, a translucent ripple appeared out of nowhere, easily blocking Linley's claw for Clade. Is this your final trump card? Linley frowned, his face extremely ugly to behold. It's the reward I got for sending people to capture your mother. With it, even if you transform into the ancestral dragon, you won't be able to kill me. Clade stared at Linley expressionlessly. His cold words were filled with pride. If I don't kill you, the hatred in my heart will never disappear. Linley transformed into the ancestral dragon again. His powerful aura exploded, and he slashed out again and again at Clade's body. Rumble. 21 claws in a row, and each claw landed on a different spot. But no matter where Linley's attack landed, it was blocked by the translucent ripple in the end. The third scene. It was still the blood-soaked courtyard. At this moment, Clade was in a sorry state. The translucent ripple on the surface of his body had almost dissipated. Crack. Finally, under the repeated blows of Linley's claws, Clade's defense finally shattered with a clear, crisp sound. Old man, let's see if you die this time. Linley laughed wildly. His eyes were bloodshot as if he had gone crazy. His hands turned into dragon claws again, and he slashed at Clade's head. But just as Linley's claws were about to shatter Clade's head, right at this moment, above Clade, a tall, skinny man dressed in a long white robe appeared. He stood there in midair, looking down at Linley like a god from the heavens. Rumble. The long-robed man attacked with incomparable power. In just 2 short exchanges, he heavily injured Linley, and then, under Clade's grateful gaze, he took Linley away. I can't accept not being able to kill you. Within the palace, Linley's hysterical, murderous howls could be heard. No way. Linley's mother really was captured by His Majesty Clade. Didn't you hear what His Majesty said? He was just trying to curry favor with the person behind the scenes. But speaking of which, given His Majesty Clade's status, who would need him to curry favor with him like this? That Linley actually went to attack His Majesty Clade. Right. If it hadn't been for the Holy Emperor intervening, His Majesty Clade probably really would have been killed by Linley. After seeing the third image, the spectators around the rubble couldn't help but let out cries of shock. Gatemaster, has young Master Linley fallen into the hands of the Holy Emperor, Haydns? Hillman looked at Chu Bei, a puzzled look on his face. In the past 10 years, although our All Heavens shop hasn't had a particularly good relationship with the Radiant Church, we haven't had any conflicts. Since Holy Emperor Haydns has already prevented young Master Linley from killing, why hasn't he released him yet? Chu Bei didn't say anything. He just gave Hillman a look, indicating for him to continue watching. The fourth image. This was an enormous main hall. The interior of the hall was decorated in a Western style. Right now, there were 2 figures within the hall. One was the Holy Emperor, Haydns, while the other was Cardinal Guillermo. Holy Emperor, how should we persuade Linley? After all, He is the king of the kingdom of Funlai. If he were to die, the kingdom would be thrown into chaos. Guillermo looked at Haydn's. No need to persuade him. This kid's fate is either to serve the Radiant Church or to die. Haydn said calmly, "What?" Hearing Haydn's reply, Guillermo was clearly shocked. Holy Emperor, this Linley's master is a saint-level expert. We have always minded our own business with the All-Heavens shop. There's no need for us to help Clade get rid of his enemies. Guillermo, do you know why Linley wants to kill Clade? Haydn's turned to look at Guillermo. Guillermo was startled. Isn't it because he killed his mother? Right. Haydn's nodded, then continued. Then do you know who Linley's mother is? Guillermo shook his head. I haven't done any research. Haydn's narrowed his eyes, a solemn look on his face. Linley's mother is that woman whom Clade gifted to us 12 years ago. What? Her? Hearing Haydn's words, Guillermo's face suddenly changed. He suddenly remembered, because this woman had a tremendous influence on the Radiant Temple. Holy Emperor, then how are you planning to deal with this Linley? Guillermo's face was rather solemn. The talent Linley had displayed was simply too terrifying. At the young age of 16, he had already broken through to the 9th rank. In the entire history of the Yulon continent, there had never been such a young combatant of the 9th rank. Not only that, Linley had also mastered a secret technique which allowed him to transform into a dragon. In his dragon form, he was already capable of fighting against early-stage saint-level combatants. He knew that a genius like Linley had to either be recruited for his own use or not have any enmity with him. But if he really did have enmity with him, then he had to take advantage of the fact that he hadn't fully matured to eliminate this threat. Tomorrow is the missionary day, and also the day when the Radiant Sovereign's glory is at its most dazzling. Tomorrow, at this time, I will pray to the Lord to bestow upon him the divine light. Haydn said calmly, Divine light? Guillermo quickly understood what Haydn was thinking. Anyone who accepted the divine light might have their future accomplishments limited, but they would no longer pose a threat to the Radiant Church. The so-called divine light was nothing more than a strand of the power of faith which the Radiant Sovereign had sent down. It could completely cleanse a person's soul, causing that person to be filled with absolute faith and loyalty to the Radiant Sovereign. What if he fails? Guillermo asked. Even if he fails, it doesn't matter. His body is so strong that he can be used as a high-quality cultivation vessel to summon a powerful angel. Pope Haydn's lips curved upwards, carrying a sinister look. Chapter 5:14. Good heavens! Can it be that after His Majesty captured Linley's mother, he gave her to the Radiant Church? If that's the case, then Linley has fallen into the hands of the Radiant Church. Doesn't that mean he's a lamb in the tiger's den? Didn't they say that on the missionary day, the light of God would descend upon him? Today is the missionary day of the Radiant Church. After watching the fourth scene, everyone around the ruins suddenly had an epiphany, as if they had completely understood the ins and outs of the matter. That damnable Radiant Church. So they were the ones who caused the deaths of the Madam and Lord Hogg. Hillman's fists were clenched tightly, and the veins on his face bulged out, filled with a deep hatred. Just as he was preparing to say something to Chu Bei, the latter waved his sleeve, and the four images in the air disappeared. In the next instant, an invisible, terrifyingly powerful force began to emanate from Chu Bei's body, covering his entire body. Immediately afterwards, the scene in front of him began to change, as though he was passing through the Tao of space-time. Not just Hillman, Little Wharton, the Shadow Mouse of the 9th rank, the Stone-Eater Rat, and the disciples of the All-Heavens shop all disappeared. Quick, let's go to the Radiant Church. There's going to be a good show to watch. Seeing Chu Bei and the others disappear, the people in the rubble were first stunned, but then they began to grow excited. Seeing the excited looks on their faces, it was as though in their minds, they were already imagining the scene of the master of the All-Heavens shop battling the Holy Emperor Haydn for the sake of saving his disciple. Year 9999 of the Yulon calendar, July 23rd. Every year, on this day, the radiant sovereign's glory would be at its most dazzling, as well as the missionary day of the Radiant Church. The so-called missionary day was nothing more than the Radiant Church sending out invitations to all the important figures of the 4 great empires and the 3 great powers to come and enjoy the blessings of the Radiant Sovereign. But of course, on this missionary day, if someone came uninvited, the Radiant Church wouldn't drive them away. Instead, they would warmly welcome them. In fact, even if someone from the Cult of Shadows came, on the surface, they would still welcome them with smiles. Because of this, today, the Radiant Church's plaza, which was hundreds of acres, was packed with people. Some of these people came from the O'Brien Empire, some from the Yulan Empire, some from the Roll Empire, and some from the Rhine Empire. Of course, other than the people from the empire, there were also many nobles from small kingdoms. As for their cultivation, the weaker ones were at the 2nd or 3rd level, while the stronger ones had already broken through the 9th level and become saint-level experts. Have you heard? Before this year's Radiant Sovereign bestowed his blessing, the Radiant Church seemed to have a small episode. Of course I do. It seems to be related to the proxy owner of the All Heavens shop. Are you referring to Linley? This little guy was really something. At the mere age of 17, he was already a level 9 expert. After transforming, he'll be able to battle a saint expert. It's a pity that such a genius will fall today. What do you mean? What the hell happened to Linley? Don't worry, you'll know soon enough. In the plaza, powerful practitioners and nobles from all over the continent were fervently discussing the topic of the Radiant Church's Missionary Day. As they chatted, someone brought the topic to Linley. Those who were familiar with Linley, upon hearing this news, all revealed looks of astonishment on their faces. They wanted to get to the bottom of this. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to participate in this important ceremony of the Radiant Church on such an important day. In the center of the plaza, there was a large dais. Accompanied by a deep voice, Holy Emperor Haydns flew over from afar, slowly landing on the dais. A few seconds later, nearly 10 figures appeared on the dais after Haydns. Amongst them were 3 cardinals, 2 praetor chiefs, 6 special executors, and King Clade of the Kingdom of Funlai. Of the people seated on the dais, the weakest was a combatant of the 9th rank. After a while, 2 white-robed executors stepped onto the dais. However, they were holding down a youth who looked to be around 16 or 17 years old. Is that Linley from the All Heavens shop? A 16-year-old warrior of the 9th rank? How did he offend the Radiant Church? He was actually forced onto the dais by executor on this missionary day. Countless gazes from below the dais fell upon Linley's body. When Linley was forced to the center of the dais, a strange, complicated, octagonal magical formation suddenly took shape. Your Holiness, what are you doing? Linley's voice was very low. Right now, he didn't know that the Radiant Church was the true culprit behind his mother's death. When he saw that Clade was also on the dais, his fists clenched tightly, and his eyes were filled with a murderous intent. He wanted nothing more than to rip Clade's tendons and break his bones. Everyone, this little brother Linley has been bedeviled. He even snuck into the palace to assassinate Clade. If I hadn't arrived in time, the King of Funlai probably would have been replaced. As soon as Holy Emperor Haydn's words came out, the entire plaza was in an uproar. But of course, those who knew about this beforehand didn't have much of a reaction on their faces. For the sake of cleansing the demonic aura from his body, today, I invite the Radiant Sovereign to bestow upon him the light of God. As these calm words came out, Holy Emperor Haydn's body began to glow with a white light, and a thick stream of light-style mage force immediately poured into the octagonal magical formation. Instantly, the magical formation lit up, and a golden holy scripture appeared in front of Haydn's. His body began to emit a golden light as well. Lord, it is you who have bestowed upon us everything. Here is a sinner. I implore you to bestow upon us the light of God. Haydn's put his hands together, and his voice was like thunder, echoing in the hearts of everyone present. At almost the same time, the golden holy scripture in front of him began to glow, and the holy white light within the magical formation began to glow as well. Light of God. Isn't that the method which the Radiant Church uses to deal with traitors? Why would they use it on Linley? Can it be that the Radiant Church wants to recruit Linley for their own use? Based on what I know, this Linley has a saint-level combatant behind him. The Radiant Church is making an enemy out of him. Some of the powerful practitioners who had some understanding of the Radiant Church's light of God stared at the octagonal magical formation on the dais, frowning. Crackle, slowly, the large dais began to tremble, and a ray of golden light flew out from the center of the octagonal magical formation. When this ray of golden light entered Linley's forehead, his entire body began to glow with a faint, hazy light. Linley, don't be bewitched. This so-called light of God isn't anything good at all. Just as Linley was reveling in this warm, healing golden light, Doran Cowart's voice suddenly rang out. But before Linley could respond, his face suddenly twisted, and a miserable, agonized howl came from his mouth, as though he was experiencing some sort of unbearable pain. This ray of golden light actually had an inner and outer ray. When the outer ray of light entered Linley's body, a warm feeling arose. But when the inner ray of light entered Linley's body, Linley felt as though 10,000 bugs were gnawing at his heart. Grandpa Doring, this ray of light is going to drill into my soul. Linley forced himself to endure the pain. Using his divine will, he hurriedly communicated with Doran Cowart. But before Doran Cowart could speak, a terrifying surge of energy suddenly burst forth from the coiling dragon ring on Linley's finger, entering Linley's sea of consciousness. In the next instant, the energy from the coiling dragon ring extinguished the light of God which the radiant sovereign had bestowed upon Linley. Right at this moment, Linley's pained expression finally relaxed. The sweat on his forehead indicated that he had just narrowly escaped death. Grandpa Doring, what was that mysterious energy just now? Linley's entire body relaxed as he hurriedly asked Doran Cowart. As expected, this coiling dragon ring contains a mysterious power. Doran Cowart clenched his fists, somewhat nervous. This energy is extremely terrifying. Even in my prime, I wouldn't be able to withstand it. Hey, the light of God of the Radiant Church actually lost its effect. So something like this actually happened. All of the experts of the 8th rank and above seemed to have realized something, and looks of surprise appeared on their faces. The most shocked people present were none other than Pope Haydns and the 3 cardinals. They stared in astonishment at what had just happened to Linley's body. The light of God had clearly descended, but Linley's forehead didn't show any signs of being a servant of the radiant God. Your Holiness, what should we do now? A white deacon looked at Haydns, frowning. The second option, as Holy Emperor Haydn's cold words fell, an enormous explosion could be heard in the distant skies. And then, a dazzling beam of light, 5 meters in diameter and carrying a divine aura, descended from the heavens, smashing down upon Linley's body. Boom! At almost the same time, Linley's body trembled, and then he collapsed. Instantly, Linley's face turned savage. His curled-up body began to convulse in agony, the veins on his entire body bulging. His agonized screams were heart-shaking. A draconic roar could be heard. While struggling, Linley transformed into a 5-clawed golden dragon. But despite that, he continued to convulse. His shining draconic scales began to fall off, and traces of dark red blood flowed from his body. It was a shocking sight. What just happened? Wasn't Linley perfectly fine just a moment ago? How did he suddenly become like this? The Radiant Church received him. Linley has become a cultivation vessel. Someone is trying to take over his body. What sort of deep enmity does he have with the Radiant Church for him to be reduced to such a state? Around the high platform, the people slowly began to understand, and looks of pity appeared in their eyes. Linley, you shouldn't have probed into what happened 12 years ago. You can't blame us for all of this. Haydns's words were cold and sinister. Boss, I will definitely avenge you. From afar, a palm-sized rat stared fixedly at Haydns with its blood-red eyes. Kid, even if I risk my life, I don't know if I'll be able to save you. Doran Cowart let out a quiet sigh, then flew out from the coiling dragon ring. However, just as Doring Cowart was preparing to use his secret technique, a bone-piercing cold wind suddenly arose, blowing towards him. At this moment, not just him, but all of the tens of thousands of people present felt a chill in their hearts, as though they had been plunged into an icehouse. Chapter 5:15. To use my disciple as a cultivation vessel, are you tired of living? Suddenly, an icy voice filled with boundless killing intent rang out from the heavens, echoing in the air above the plaza. The air instantly froze. Who is it? Who is speaking? In the large plaza, everyone couldn't help but shiver. Gusts of cold wind that came out of nowhere blew past their bodies, making them feel as if they were in an icy cave. In particular, that omnipresent killing intent caused their hearts to tremble. Countless experts turned their heads and looked around, as though searching for something. Very quickly, several figures appeared in their field of vision. Right at this moment, everyone in the plaza turned their gazes towards the leader of those figures, a young man. The young man's face was gloomy, and no emotion could be seen on his face. His eyes faintly emanated the coldness of the cold in the forest. Boom, boom, boom. Suddenly, the air began to vibrate, and the ground began to shake violently, as though an earthquake had occurred. And then, a series of ear-splitting explosions rang out in everyone's ears. What happened? Everyone in the plaza struggled to stabilize themselves, their voices filled with terror. Quick, look. This can't be. Some of the Saint-level experts who were standing on higher ground in the plaza flew into the air. When they saw what was happening around them, all of their faces froze. Their faces were filled with astonishment, as though they couldn't believe what they were seeing. Seeing the shocked faces of those Saint-level experts in the air, more and more people in the plaza began to climb to higher ground. The wind-style magi immediately used the soaring technique, allowing them to temporarily hover in the air. When they saw what was happening within the Radiant Church, their faces were no different from those Saint-level experts, or even more exaggerated. All of them were stupefied. It was as though their brains had lost the ability to control their actions. They stood there like wooden blocks, staring blankly ahead of them. The Radiant Church was located in the western part of Funlai City, and it took up tens of thousands of square meters of land. But right at this moment, every single corner of the Radiant Church was exploding with heaven-shaking, earth-shattering explosions. Under the power of the explosions, large swathes of buildings were transformed into nothingness, dissipating into the air. Boom! In the distant sky, the sound of someone stepping on air rang out, shaking everyone's hearts. As Chu Bei's foot landed, the tens of thousands of acres of the Radiant Church exploded with a dazzling light. One could faintly hear the miserable cries of countless people, which disappeared in an instant. When the dazzling light disappeared, the people in the square could once again see everything around them. They couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air as their bodies went numb. The Radiant Church is gone. It's him. It must be him. Who the hell is he? Looking at the ruins of the Radiant Church, or more accurately, the ruins, the experts snapped out of their daze and fixed their gazes on the figure in the sky. Their eyes were filled with dread and fear. The Radiant Church, one of the most powerful forces of the Yulon continent, had been reduced to rubble in an instant. All of this had happened too suddenly and unexpectedly, catching them completely off guard. In addition, today was the Radiant Church's most important missionary day. Who could have imagined that on this day, the enormous Radiant Church would be gone just like that? Those tens of thousands of followers of the Radiant Church, along with the buildings, had been reduced to rubble. One could even smell the pungent stench of blood in the air, causing one to feel nauseous and terrified. Your Holiness, the Radiant Church is gone. The faces of the red-robed archbishops instantly turned gray. They were not the only ones. The other upper echelons of the church on the high platform all looked as if they had been struck by a bolt of lightning. They were at a loss, as if they had been struck by lightning. They looked like clay statues. You are the owner of the All-Heavens shop. Boss Chu. Pope Haydn's flew into the air, glancing at the dust and rubble around him. Letting out a long breath, He suppressed the fear in his heart, then stared warily at Chu Bei. Right now, Haydn's entire body was as taut as a rock, and his heart felt as heavy as lead. The owner of the All Heavens shop. So he is the owner of the All Heavens shop who disappeared 10 years ago. How can this be? Didn't they say that the owner of the All Heavens shop was only a saint-level combatant? Look, is this something a saint-level combatant is capable of? Can it be that, like the war god and the high priest, he has already become a deity? If that's the case, then Haydn's and the others are in danger. After confirming Chu Bei's identity, the stunned looks on the faces of the people in the plaza grew even more intense. Looks of disbelief were on their faces. In the air, Hillman, the shadow mouse of the 9th rank, the stone-eater rat, and the other disciples of the All Heavens shop lowered their heads, sweeping the rubble below them. All of them gulped. Clearly, this was the first time they had seen Chu Bei's abilities. Father, mother, you came. The palm-sized rat, who had been hiding in the distance, suddenly flew over to the shadow mouse of the 9th rank. Bibi, this is Boss Chu. He is the benefactor of our entire family. If it wasn't for him, your father and I would have died 10 years ago. The shadow mouse of the 9th rank said, Hello, Lord Boss. Bibi glanced at the rubble below them, then turned to look at Chu Bei. Clearly, he was a bit cautious. But then, as though he had thought of something, he immediately pointed at Linley, who was still twitching and rolling about on the dais. A frantic look on his face, he said, Lord Boss, please save the boss. He's in a very bad situation. At this moment, Doring Cowart, who had flown out of the coiling dragon ring, still hadn't regained his senses. A dazed look was still on his face, and his expression was somewhat sluggish. He stared at Chu Bei in a daze, not even blinking. This person's abilities had truly shocked him. Chu Bei ignored the gazes of the people around him. His gaze fell upon the dais. With a wave of his right hand, a gust of wind shot out from his palm, instantly smashing against Linley's body. "Oh!" A miserable scream rang out. Only, this scream wasn't Linley's voice. Instead, it was an even more piercing screech. In the next instant, under the astonished gazes of countless people, a semi-translucent figure flew out from Linley's body. To be precise, it didn't fly out. Rather, it had been pulled out of Linley's body by an invisible force. That's the four-winged angel. Is that the angel who was going to take over Linley's body? Based on what I learned from the ancient texts, the four-winged angel's power has already reached the limits of the saint level. He's only a step away from becoming a deity. That semi-translucent figure had 4 wings on his back, and a circular halo of light above his head. When the experts in the plaza recognized him, they all began to cry out in shock. Boom! But just as they began to discuss this, an enormous hand formed around the four-winged angel. The enormous hand clenched, and then, with a massive explosion, it exploded. The four-winged angel didn't even have a chance to let out a scream before he was crushed into nothingness by the enormous hand. All of this happened in the space of a single spark. Dead. The four-winged angel died, just like that. That was a peak-stage saint-level expert. But even so, in front of the owner of the All Heavens shop, he still wasn't able to fight back at all. No need to think about it. The owner of the All Heavens shop has definitely become a deity. Seeing the four-winged angel disintegrate into nothingness, the experts in the plaza all held their breaths. Master, on the dais, the 5-clawed golden dragon transformed back into Linley's appearance. He was still rather weak right now, but upon seeing Chu Bei, he suppressed the excitement in his heart and immediately knelt down to pay his respects. Linley, you've suffered. Leave the rest to me, your master. Chu Bei's gaze fell upon Linley, and his tone was somewhat gentler. With a wave of his hand, a ray of divine light enveloped Linley. In the blink of an eye, Linley's wounds were all healed. His pale face regained its color, and his aura returned to its peak. Swish, swish. It was also at this moment that 4 sounds of breaking through the air came from afar. Not long after, 4 more figures appeared on top of the high platform. The first person who had appeared had a head of long, crimson hair, and when he opened his eyes, they seemed to shoot out saber light. The unintentional, dominating aura emanating from him caused all the experts present to feel a sense of suffocation. The second person had long, flowing silver hair and wore a mask that glowed with green light. His body was slender, and it was hard to tell whether he was a man or a woman. The third person was dressed in a long, dark golden robe. He looked like a devilish youth, but the strange thing was, aside from his normal pair of eyes, he had 4 more eyes on his forehead, for a total of 6 eyes. The fourth person was dressed in a long, grayish-black robe. He stood there with his hands clasped behind his back. In terms of aura, he seemed to be somewhat weaker than the previous 3, but there wasn't much of a difference. Lord War God. High Priest. Seeing the appearance of the 4 figures in the air, the experts of the O'Brien Empire and the Yulan Empire who were at least of the 8th rank were all stunned. After they came back to their senses, they all immediately knelt down respectfully towards the 2 figures in the air. What? They are the war god O'Brien and the High Priest. Seeing the experts of the 2 empires simultaneously kowtow, the other experts in the plaza were all stunned, and then they couldn't help but cry out in shock. In the Yulan continent, there were a total of 3 deities. They had surpassed the saint level and stood at the very peak of the Yulan continent. The first was the spiritual pillar of the O'Brien Empire, the war god. The second was the spiritual pillar of the Yulan Empire, the High Priest. As for the third, it was the one from the Forest of Darkness. What are the backgrounds of the other 2? Can it be that one of them is the deity from the Forest of Darkness? Just as the experts were guessing at the identities of the 3rd and 4th figures in the air, the war god spoke out. Dylan, I didn't expect you to have escaped from the Gabados prison. And you, Shisai, I didn't expect you to have become a deity as well. As soon as the war god's words came out, the plaza once more burst into an uproar. Gabados prison? What kind of place is that? Why have I never heard of it? Judging from the war god's tone, can it be that these 2 are deities as well? Good heavens! In that case, the 4 of them, plus the one from the Forest of Darkness, means our Yulan continent now has 5 deities. Wrong. If we add in the owner of the All-Heavens shop, that makes 6 deities. The war god, the High Priest, Shisai, and Dylan didn't pay any attention to the discussions of the people in the plaza. They glanced sideways at the rubble of the radiant church, and then their gazes fell upon Chu Bei. When they spread out their divine senses to scan Chu Bei, they all frowned, and their faces grew solemn. Chu Bei just glanced calmly at the war god, the High Priest, and the others, then his gaze fell upon Pope Haydn's and the King of Funlai, Clade. Faced with Chu Bei's cold gaze, Clade's gaze was somewhat evasive. His body instinctively trembling, he subconsciously walked towards Haydn's. Boom. But just as Clade was about to walk behind Haydn's, his body suddenly felt as though it was being squeezed by an invisible force. And then, with a rumbling sound, he exploded. Blood and flesh flew everywhere, landing on the bodies of Haydn's, the cardinal, and the others. Seeing this, the experts in the plaza all gulped. Incomparably silent. Not a single one of them made a sound. Just like that, the king of Funlai, Clade, had died for no apparent reason. Although they hadn't seen the owner of the All-Heavens shop attack, they were incomparably certain that this had been done by him. Chapter 5:16. In midair, the war god, the high priest, Caesar, and Dylan exchanged glances, a hint of shock flashing through their eyes. They were deities as well, but it was hard for them to kill a combatant of the 9th rank without doing anything at all. Bang! Bang! After Clade's explosion, more explosive sounds could be heard from the platform. First were the 2 white executors, then the 6 special executors, and finally the 2 praetor chiefs. No. Staring at the piles of minced meat next to them, the 3 cardinals' faces were filled with terror. They subconsciously leapt into the air. However, before they could fly more than 100 meters, their bodies exploded. It was a shocking sight. In the plaza, the spectating experts were all numb. Their eyes were unfocused as they stared at the platform. In just a few breaths' time, aside from that nauseating pile of flesh and blood, the only person left on the platform was Pope Haydn's. Right now, Pope Haydn's was trembling. It wasn't hard to see the terror in his heart. His hands were clasped in front of his chest, tightly clenching a golden pendant. His mouth was mumbling to himself, "Linley, do you know why the Radiant Church is treating you like this?" Chu Bei turned to look at Linley. "They are on good terms with Clade," Linley said. "No, because they were the true masterminds 12 years ago," Chu Bei said calmly. It's them who harmed my mother." Hearing Chu Bei's words, Linley's aura suddenly exploded, and he stared at Haydn's with a murderous look in his eyes. "Why? Why did you kidnap my mother? Where is she right now? Is she dead or alive?" "Dead or alive. Don't even think about seeing her again." Haydn suddenly raised his head to look at Linley. In this moment, the terror on his face disappeared. As his words came out, his gaze once more fell upon Chu Bei. Holding the golden pendant in his hand in his mouth, he said with a pious look on his face, "Lord, with my own body as the guide, I implore you to send down your God-level angel." Rumble. Just as Haydn's incomparably sincere words came out, an enormous explosion could be heard from the distant skies above the dais. In the next instant, an enormous halo of light, like the blazing sun, appeared. "Quick look. That's a six-winged angel." Staring at the resplendent figure within the halo, the experts in the plaza couldn't help but cry out in surprise. Even the war god, the high priest, Caesar, and Dylan revealed a hint of astonishment on their faces. Under the watchful gazes of the countless people present, the six-winged seraphim walked out of the halo, then flew down, merging with Haydn's body. In the blink of an eye, Haydn seemed to have become a completely different person. Two beams of dazzling golden light shot out from his eyes, and 6 pure white wings grew out from his back. With a bang, the high platform under his feet turned into powder under his powerful aura. Haydn's used his own body as a furnace to summon the 6-winged seraphim. Seeing Haydn's fly into the air, emanating an incomparably terrifying aura, the people in the plaza all revealed looks of astonishment. Blasphemy against the Lord of Light and the destruction of our Lord's legacy in the mortal world. High up in the air, Haydn's face was cold, as though he were a god. His voice was low and cold, but it wasn't the same tone as before. Clearly, the one currently in control of Haydn's body was that 6-winged angel. The Lord of Light? Hearing this name, Chu Bei wasn't moved at all. His face didn't change in the slightest. He doesn't care about the Yulon continent. Even if the Radiant Church here were to be destroyed, he probably wouldn't care. After speaking to this point, Chu Bei narrowed his eyes. His tone suddenly changed, and his voice turned cold. What's more, he really did come. If he dares to take action for this matter, I will kill him as well. Impudent. What arrogance. Chu Bei's words instantly enraged the 6-winged seraphim. With a loud shout, a holy light began to emanate from Haydn's body. In the next instant, the entire plaza fell silent. Everyone was immersed in this saint-level light, a look of intoxication on their faces. Godrealm. The saints who were still conscious stared at the 6-winged seraphim in the air, their words filled with astonishment. The war god, the high priest, Caesar, and Dylan were all silent. Their gazes turned from Chu Bei to Haydn's. In terms of aura, the 6-winged seraphim was actually superior to the 4 of them. Go to hell. The 6-winged seraphim's cold voice rang out in the air. And then, the holy light in the air above the plaza coalesced into an enormous sword of light, which descended directly towards Chu Bei. Faced with this sword, Chu Bei's face was expressionless. He didn't even glance at the 6-winged seraphim. Instead, his gaze fell upon the war god, the high priest, Caesar, and Dylan. From today onwards, if anyone dares to offend the All-Heaven shop, the Radiant Church will suffer the same fate. Suddenly, a deep, calm voice filled with majesty rang out from Chu Bei's mouth. With him as the center, it spread throughout Funlai City, throughout the kingdom of Funlai, and throughout the entire Yulan continent. In this moment, every living creature in every corner of the continent trembled, their minds echoing with this incomparably terrifying, soul-shaking voice. The war god, the high priest, Caesar, and Dylan all frowned, their faces ugly to behold. This person's threatening words were clearly meant for the four of them. But just as they were preparing to mock and ridicule him, the owner of the all-heavens shop struck out. Boom! Chu Bei casually pointed backwards with a finger. With an enormous, heaven-shaking boom, the space behind him twisted and then exploded. That enormous sword of light and heightens, at almost the exact same moment, both twisted and distorted, then exploded. Dead. Just like that, he died. Even the six-winged seraphim, in front of the owner of the all-heavens shop, is nothing more than an ant? Good heavens! It seems the owner of the all-heavens shop is even more powerful than the war god and the high priest. Staring at the six-winged seraphim, who had been killed before he could even react, the experts in the plaza all fell into a daze. This person is most likely no weaker than that person in the forest of darkness. The war god, the high priest, Caesar, and Dylan were all stunned. They stared blankly at Chu Bei's figure, their eyes swiveling in thought. No one knew what they were thinking. Crunch! Right at this moment, the space which had been shattered by Chu Bei's punch suddenly began to emit a clear, cracking sound, as though some grand sealing formation which had been sealed for 10,000 years had been broken apart. On the other side, the forest of darkness. Lord Beirut, why did you suddenly wake up? The three violet gold rats stared at the figure in front of them, puzzled. I was too careless. I didn't expect him to have such power. The Yulan continent is about to change. Under the confused gazes of the three violet gold rats, the figure suddenly disappeared. Crunch, crunch, crunch. In the air above the plaza, the shattered space behind Chu Bei seemed to have collapsed a second time, as a strange, enormous hole appeared. Haha, 10,000 years. Raka, have finally come out. The air of the Yulan continent is so fresh. If I think about it, it's been more than 1,000,000 years. My wife, my child, are you all well? Bafeng, have returned. Beirut, it's time for us to settle this debt. Soon, tens of thousands of excited voices intertwined and floated in the sky. As far as the eye could see, from that enormous hole behind Chu Bei, countless figures were wildly charging out like locusts, then flying in every direction. Friend, were you the one who rescued us? Thank you so much. A middle-aged man dressed in a black robe came to a halt in front of Chu Bei. After clasping his fists, he took a step forward, shattering the space beneath his feet and then disappearing. These fellows. This sudden turn of events caused the war god, the high priest, Caesar, and Dylan to be stunned. 90% of the powerful auras emanating from those tens of thousands of figures were above theirs. In fact, some of the auras emanating from them were enough to make them feel as though they were suffocating. To be precise, it wasn't just the four of them. Everyone in the plaza was stupefied. All of them had numb looks on their faces as they stared at the distant divine rainbows. They couldn't help but gulp. Good heavens, where did these fellows come from? They're all able to stand in midair. In other words, even the weakest of them is at least at the saint level of power. No, the feeling they give me is even more terrifying than that of the war god and the high priest. The onlookers in the plaza all had their mouths wide open. Their heads were swiveling non-stop, unable to be any more shocked. Boom! Yet another muffled sound. A black-robed figure appeared in the air above the plaza. Recognizing the black-robed figure, the war god, the high priest, Caesar, and Dylan's pupils contracted. Coming back to their senses, they simultaneously clasped their fists. Lord Beirut, the war god and the other three had respectful looks on their faces as they called out in unison. It's that lord of the forest of darkness. He actually appeared as well. Was he alarmed by what just happened? Even the war god and the high priest are so respectful towards him. I imagine his power must be terrifying. I wonder, compared to the owner of the All Heavens shop, who is stronger? After appearing, Beirut glanced sideways at Chu Bei, who looked as though this had nothing to do with him. Frowning, Beirut stretched out his right hand, transforming it into an enormous black palm that slapped towards the crack in the formation. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The enormous palm emanated a black light, and a strange seal began to form within it, repairing the shattered ceiling formation. In just a few breaths of time, the unending stream of people pouring out from the crack was like a river that had been cut off, no longer able to charge out. After repairing the seal, Beirut let out a long breath, then stared intently at Chu Bei. Because of you, the continent is about to change. In the air above the plaza, Beirut finished sealing the crack in the formation, then turned to look at Chu Bei, letting out a gloomy sigh. Lord Beirut, what's going on? And those tens of thousands of experts, where did they come from? Caesar looked at Beirut and asked. He had become a deity not too long ago, and didn't have a complete understanding of this continent. That strike of his didn't just shatter the void. It also shattered a formation that sealed another dimension. Beirut pointed at Chu Bei, then looked at Caesar. Those tens of thousands of experts you saw just now, they came from that dimension. Another space? Caesar's frown deepened. They came from the Gabados planar prison, and I came from there as well. Before Beirut could speak, Dylan, by Caesar's side, spoke out. Did you hear their conversation? The Gabados planar prison. What sort of place is that? How can there be so many experts who are not weaker than the war god or the high priest? The experts in the plaza all had puzzled looks on their faces, but their eyes were filled with curiosity and eagerness. Chapter 5:17. Now that I think about it, the Gabados prison is actually one with the Yulan continent. Beirut swept the people in the plaza with his gaze, seemingly murmuring to himself. In this vast, infinite void, there are countless ordinary planes. Every single ordinary plane has a connected prison plane. The material planes and the prison planes can be said to be two sides of the same coin. Hearing Beirut's words, Shisai and everyone else in the plaza, including Linley and Hillman, all had looks of disbelief in their eyes. Each material plane has a corresponding prison plane. The Gabados prison is a corresponding plane to our Yulan continent. In the history of the Yulan continent, whenever a saint or deity offends the planar overseer, the planar overseer will imprison them into the planar prison. Beirut continued to explain. Then, in other words, these people were all experts of the Yulan continent? Shisai asked. Right. Beirut nodded, then once more stretched out a finger towards Chu Bei. After being imprisoned in the planar prison, it is harder than ascending to the heavens for them to escape. But just now, he released those prisoners. Lord Beirut, will this cause any consequences? The war god looked at Beirut with incomparable respect. Beirut shook his head and laughed. Above the saint level is the deity level. Demigods, gods, high gods. Every single deity has different levels of power. Those who escaped from the prison, there are more than 10 high gods. If they wanted to take over a territory, would you demigods be able to stop them? Perhaps by tomorrow, the O'Brien Empire and the Yulan Empire will have a new master. Hearing Beirut's words, the faces of the war god, the high priest, and Dylan instantly changed. And then, they all turned to look at Chu Bei, their gazes filled with deep reproach. If it hadn't been for this person, how could those tens of thousands of deities have escaped from the prison? They wouldn't have been in such a passive situation. Chu Bei ignored the war god, the high priest, and the others. He didn't care about those experts who had escaped from the Gabados prison. It was fine if these fellows did not provoke him, but if they dared to come looking for trouble, he would just kill them with a raise of his hand. The Radiant Church has been destroyed by me. From now on, the territory of the Holy Alliance will be under the control of my All Heavens shop. Right at this moment, Chu Bei's voice rang out once more. His deep voice drifted out to every corner of the Yulan continent, shaking the hearts of every single person. What? The Radiant Church had been destroyed. Are you serious? All Heaven's shop? Never heard of it. Could it be that it's the one who destroyed the Radiant Church and wants to replace them? Could this all-heaven shop be the one with less than 100 people? How could it have destroyed the Radiant Church? There's something you don't know. That Representative Linley really is a monster. He's only 16 years old, but he's already a combatant of the 9th rank. Based on what I know, Linley has a master. Who do you think is speaking now? Could it be the owner of the all-heaven shop who disappeared for 10 years? F***CK. If that's the case, it's possible. Instantly, in every corner of the Yulon continent, both warriors and commoners, looks of astonishment appeared on their faces as they began to discuss this topic. All-heaven shop? Interesting. The power of this speaker is rather unfathomable. For him to be able to shatter the formation and allow us to escape from the prison, he definitely isn't a simple figure. As I see it, he should be one of the top gods. Forget it. I'll leave this all-heaven shop to those high gods. I'll just pick one of the smaller duchies. On the continent, those deities who had escaped from the Gabados prison could sense the strange aura contained within that sound wave. All of them frowned. Forget it. If it's chaotic, it's chaotic. I won't care. In the air above the plaza, Beirut let out a long sigh, then turned his gaze to the Shadow Mouse of the 9th rank, Stone Eater Rat of the 9th rank, and Bibi by Chu Bei's side. The three of you, if you have the time, come to the Forest of Darkness. The next day, the All-Heaven shop officially moved to the Palace of Funlai, and the kings of the other duchies of the Alliance were abolished. Chu Bei acted aggressively, and anyone who dared to disobey was immediately suppressed. In just half a day, the Sacred Alliance was consolidated into a single organization known as the All-Heaven Shop. And on this very day, deities began to emerge from the various regions of the continent, fighting over territory and declaring themselves kings. Within the All-Heaven Shop, seated on a luxurious dragon throne, Chu Bei was sipping tea while looking at his reputation points in the coiling dragon plane. His lips couldn't help but curve upwards in a smile. Master, the duchies of the continent have been taken over by those deities who escaped from the prison. Even the Rhine Empire has been taken over. Master, do you think they will act against us as well? Linley stood by Chu Bei's side, a respectful look on his face. If they dare to come, we'll just kill them. Chu Bei put down the tea in his hand and said casually, as though he didn't care about these deities at all. The far northern ice cap. The environment here isn't bad. It's very suitable for me to live in. From now on, it's my territory. A silver-haired old man flew over, sweeping the icy plains below him with his gaze, a smile on his face. How dare you? Who dares to spout such arrogant words? A group of people approached from afar, led by a lithe, graceful woman. Noisy. The silver-haired old man let out a cold snort, and the group instantly disappeared, including the prime saint of the icy plains, Pinslin. The Great Plains of the Far East. Above the vast plains, two streaks of divine light flashed past, finally coming to a halt in front of an enormous castle. Who goes there? A rough-looking man flew out from the castle, Wolfang mace in hand. Behind him was a group of powerful warriors of the 9th rank. From now on, the Far East is the territory of us two brothers. An icy voice rang out from the mouths of the two figures. Then let's see if you have the power. The rough-looking man's aura exploded forth, and with his Wolfang mace in hand, he led his group of warriors of the 9th rank in an attack. A group of ants who don't even have a divine spark. How dare you try to be brave? How laughable. Disdainful, mocking laughter rang out, and then an enormous hand slammed down from the skies. With a bang, everyone, including the man in the lead, was transformed into a bloody mist. The O'Brien Empire. So this is the current largest empire in the Yulon continent? In the air above the Imperial Palace, a group of experts had arrived. The leader was a handsome youth dressed in an extravagant golden robe. Yes, Lord Adkins. Behind the handsome youth, a silver-haired old man said respectfully, "This person named O'Brien has trained for less than 5,000 years. He is only a demigod." The current Yulon continent really is weak. A mere demigod is actually able to take over such a large territory. The handsome youth's tone was filled with disdain towards O'Brien. As his mocking voice rang out, an enormous amount of elemental essence suddenly began to gather, and the air above the imperial palace began to rumble. Who are they, exactly? What do they want? The cultivators of the empire could all sense the change in elemental essence, and they all stared at the sky in astonishment. In the future, I, Adkins, shall be the master of this land. The handsome youth swept the imperial palace with his gaze. As soon as his smug voice rang out, he waved his hand. Rumble. With an enormous sound, countless wind blades suddenly appeared in the air above the imperial palace, forming into a forbidden-level spell. Every single wind blade was incomparably terrifying. Flashing with golden light, they descended like a torrential downpour. Not good. Quick, flee. Terrified screams rang out from within the imperial palace. However, the speed of these innumerable wind blades was simply too fast. Even those sanctuary powerhouses did not have the time to fly away before they were engulfed by the wind blades that covered the sky and ground and turned into a pile of minced meat. In just a few short seconds, there were no longer any signs of life within the imperial palace. Let's go down and experience our new home. The handsome youth glanced at his followers, a satisfied smile on his face, and then he flew down towards the palace. Don't even think about revenge. This Atkins is a high god. Even in the Gabados prison, he is one of the most powerful high gods. In the distant skies, the high priest patted the war god O'Brien on the shoulders. One day, I will take back this territory. O'Brien's eyes were filled with the color of blood. His fists were clenched tightly, and the veins on his face were bulging. His eyes were filled with hatred. Yet another day passed. Who are these mysterious experts? In just a single day, they divided the Yulon continent. Even the ice caps of the far north, the Great Plains of the far east, and the anarchic lands have all been taken over. I hear that these experts are all deities, and powerful deities at that. You know the war god O'Brien, right? When his empire was invaded, he didn't even dare to show his face. Not just him. The high priest of the Yulon Empire didn't dare to show his face either. These experts have already reached such a terrifying level. How terrifying! But it seems as though the all-heaven shop that unified the Sacred Alliance is still there. On this day, the O'Brien Empire, the Yulon Empire, the Rolt Empire, the Rhine Empire, and the Dark Alliance all changed hands. They were all taken over by the experts from the Gabados prison. The former O'Brien Empire, the Imperial Palace. High God Adkins was seated within a pavilion, looking at his subordinate. This owner of the all-heaven shop really does have some power. 7 gods went in a row, and not a single one returned. If my guess is correct, he should be a high god as well. Lord Adkins, based on the information I just received, Ojwin and Bailuo have both taken a liking to the territory of the all-heaven shop. I imagine they are already preparing to act. The subordinate said respectfully. Oh, that makes things much more interesting. Adkins suddenly began to laugh, a look of interest on his face. Both Ojwin and Bailuo were famous high gods within the Gabados prison. In terms of power, they weren't any weaker than him. Chapter 5:18. New mission. Host, help Linley return to his ancestral home and resolve the crisis of the 4 divine beasts. Within the all-heavens shop, Chu Bei was seated on a chair when the system's voice suddenly rang out in his mind. Return to my ancestral home? Chu Bei murmured to himself. He hadn't expected that a new mission would be issued before he had even completed the previous mission. Based on what he knew, Linley's ancestors had all gone to the infernal realm of the higher planes. Master, more people have come. In addition, these people seem to be even more terrifying than the previous ones. Right at this moment, hurried footsteps could be heard. Linley, Hillman, and the others ran in, looks of panic on their faces. These guys really are boring. It seems I'll have to establish my dominance. Thinking about how his next mission would require him to leave the Yulon continent, Chu Bei's face slowly turned cold. As his calm words came out, Chu Bei took a single step forward, instantly arriving in the air above the All-Heavens shop. Rumble. At the same time, the skies above the Yulon continent began to rumble. Dark clouds began to fill the skies, and then, one image after another appeared before the eyes of everyone present. That's the kingdom of Funlai of the Holy Alliance. No, wait. It should be called the All-Heavens shop now. Can it be that that young man is the master of the All-Heavens shop? I've finally seen what he looks like in person. Who are those two? No need to think about it. They are definitely deities who are preparing to take over the All-Heavens shop. In the instant that strange phenomenon appeared in the skies, everyone in the Yulon continent raised their heads. All of their gazes were fixed on the image in the skies, looks of astonishment on their faces. Lord Ojwin and Lord Bailuo. Are the two of them planning to attack the All-Heavens shop? It seems the final territory is about to be taken over. The most astonished people were none other than those deities who had escaped from the Gabedo's prison. When they saw Ojwin and Bailuo on the screen, their pupils suddenly contracted. Both Ojwin and Bailuo were extremely famous within the Gabedo's prison. It could be said that they stood at the very peak of high gods. However, what they hadn't expected was that these two overlords would set their sights on the All-Heavens shop's territory at the same time. That's interesting. In the forest of darkness, Beirut looked up at the scene in the sky with a playful smile on his face. It was as if he was watching a show. The former high god of the O'Brien Empire, Adkins, led his subordinates out of the main hall as well, staring at the skies with interest. Boom! Just as the gazes of everyone in the Yulon continent were focused on the distant images, an enormous, heaven-shaking explosion rang out in their ears, shaking their souls. In the next instant, the imperial palace of Funlai disappeared from their vision, replaced by darkness. Before they could express their shock, a gigantic golden five-clawed dragon appeared in the dark image. The 4 pairs of dragon horns on the head of the giant dragon were inexplicably frightening. This is the residents of every corner of the Yulon continent, including the deities who had escaped from the Gabedo's prison, were all stunned. Their lips twitched as they stared blankly. Above the forest of darkness, Beirut frowned. Looking up at the sky, a solemn look appeared on his face for the first time. Within the imperial palace of Funlai, Linley, Hillman, Bibi, and the other disciples of the All-Heavens shop all looked at each other. They were staring directly at the image in the sky. It was a hazy field of primordial chaos, and nothing could be seen clearly. But through the image, they were able to see the 5-clawed golden dragon within the primordial chaos. Finally, aside from the 5-clawed golden dragon behind Chu Bei, the images of Ojwin and Bailuo appeared as well. Right now, from the looks of shock on their faces, it was as though they were experiencing some sort of terrifying experience. In reality, this was indeed the case. Ojwin and Bailuo, the 2 high gods of the Gabedo's prison, stared in terror at the 5-clawed golden dragon in front of them, their eyes filled with regret. Ever since the owner of the All-Heavens shop had raised his hand and imprisoned them in this boundless little world, they had realized how terrifying their opponent was. In particular, after the 5-clawed golden dragon had manifested behind him, the draconic aura emanating from it had actually caused the divine power in their bodies to stop circulating. Even amongst high gods, they were powerful existences. They had never been forced into such a passive position in a battle. You are of the four divine beasts clan? Ojwin seemed to have thought of something, and his voice trembled as he spoke. Chu Bei ignored Ojwin. The 5-clawed golden dragon behind him swung its head back and forth, its massive eyes staring down at the ground below. Crackle. In an instant, tens of thousands of golden lights shot out from the endless images in the sky, shining on the experts who had escaped from the Gabedo's prison. It was also at this moment that all the experts who were hit by the gaze suddenly trembled as their heartstrings tightened. Inexplicably, it was as if a terrifying, invisible energy had intruded into their bodies. This energy carried with it terrifying, destructive fluctuations. It felt as if, With just a thought from the owner of this energy, they would explode under the bombardment of this energy, turning into ashes. This king will emphasize once more. The former sacred alliance is now within the territory of the all-heaven shop. No matter how you fight outside this area, this king will not interfere. The calm voice was mixed with an incomparably cold and majestic voice. At this point, the voice became low and threatening. However, if anyone dares to covet the territory of the all-heaven shop, their fate will be the same as theirs. After hearing Chu Bei's words, everyone in the continent subconsciously cast their gazes towards Audwin and Bailuo. Then, in the images, an enormous dragon claw swept across the sky, thousands of stars swirling within it. Wherever the dragon claw passed, the pitch-black void distorted, and in an instant, it appeared in front of Audwin and Bailuo. Audwin and Bailuo's pupils shrank, fear rising in their eyes. Resplendent light rose from their bodies, forming an armor of light. Bang! However, this seemingly indestructible armor of light was like a decoration in front of the dragon claw. In an instant, Audwin and Bailuo were transformed into nothingness. A short while later, the images in every corner of the Yulan continent began to change. The pitch-black battlefield disappeared, once more transforming into the imperial palace of Funlai. The incomparably enormous five-clawed golden dragon behind Chu Bei disappeared as well. Chu Bei hovered in the air above the imperial palace, his hands clasped behind his back, a calm look on his face. The deities who had escaped from the Gabedo's prison all stared blankly at the sky, their expressions frozen, as though they had been frozen in time. Although everything had returned to normal, they knew that what had happened just now had truly happened. Audwin and Bailuo, the two peak high gods who had dominated the Gabedo's prison, had just been annihilated by the claw of the golden dragon behind the owner of the all-heaven shop. Their souls had been destroyed. Lord Audwin and Lord Bailuo are dead. They are supreme existences amongst high gods. In the Gabedo's prison, their power is second only to the five kings. Can it be that the owner of the all-heaven shop has already reached the level of a high god paragon? The deities slowly regained their composure, staring at Chu Bei in astonishment. They didn't dare believe what they had just seen. The former O'Brien Empire. The Imperial Palace. Lord Adkins, what do you think of this battle? A red-clothed man couldn't help but look at the handsome youth next to him. Dragon aspect. Can it be that he is from the Four Divine Beasts clan of the Infernal Realm? But based on what I know, the Four Divine Beasts clan has already declined to the point of hiding in the Skyrite Mountains. How could a high god paragon still be roaming the outside world? Can it be that he isn't afraid of the revenge of the 8 great clans? Adkins seemed to know something. Staring at Chu Bei's back, he mumbled to himself, a look of dread in his eyes. The red-clothed man didn't say anything else, because he had already understood everything from the look on Adkins' face. At the same time, the deities scattered throughout the Yulan continent all sucked in cold breaths of air. Even now, those threatening words were still echoing in their minds. Soon, the All-Heaven Shop had become the #1 forbidden area in their plans. Lord Beirut, how powerful is this owner of the All-Heaven Shop? The 3 violet gold rats flew to Beirut's side, their eyes filled with confusion. Beirut shook his head. I can't tell. What? Even you can't tell? Then doesn't that mean he? How could someone like him have appeared in the Yulan continent? Hearing Beirut's words, the 3 violet gold rats revealed looks of astonishment. They once more turned to look at Chu Bei, their eyes filled with deep respect. So powerful. Staring at Chu Bei slowly descending from the skies, Linley once more let out a heartfelt sigh. Disciple, come with your master. I'll take you for a stroll around the infernal realm. And then, we'll go to the netherworld. Chu Bei looked calmly at Linley as he spoke. The infernal realm? The netherworld? One of the 4 higher planes. Hearing Chu Bei's words, Linley's face suddenly changed. Master, why must we? The infernal realm, where I'll take you to meet your ancestors. As for the netherworld, I'll revive your father. After speaking calmly, Chu Bei tapped the air with his finger, then drew a circle. Revive my father. Linley was stunned at first, but when he came back to his senses, his face was filled with wild joy. How is this possible? What the hell is his background? Just as Chu Bei casually sliced open a tunnel and brought Linley with him, the high gods of the Yulan continent all revealed looks of disbelief. Aside from the fact that this person had wiped out two of their most powerful high gods with a wave of his hand, the fact that he had casually sliced open a tunnel to another plane was enough to make them feel numb. Ordinary experts, if they wanted to go to another plane from the Yulan continent, would have to go to the Arctic ice cap at the end of the North Sea and go through the planar overseer. But they had never heard of someone like Chu Bei, who was able to create a tunnel to another plane with a wave of his hand. He's even more powerful than I imagined. In the forest of darkness, Beirut's face grew even more solemn. With a sigh, his body faded, then disappeared. Chapter 519. In the coiling dragon world, there were many material planes similar to the Yulan continent. Above these material planes, there were the 4 higher planes and the 7 divine planes. The 7 divine planes were created by the 7 elemental sovereigns. As for the 4 higher planes, they were created by the 4 overgods. The 7 divine planes were the earth, fire, water, wind, lightning, light, and darkness divine planes. As for the 4 divine planes, they were the celestial realm, the netherworld, the infernal realm, and the life realm. The infernal realm, a cold, sickle-like moon hung in the night sky, emanating a hazy violet light that covered the boundless world below. Rumble. The gloomy waves of water slammed repeatedly against the 10,000-meter-tall cliff, but over the course of countless years, no matter how the waves crashed against it, the cliff remained unshakable. Because this cliff was straight up and down, and its surface was as smooth as a mirror, in the infernal realm, it was known as the Mirror Moon Cliff. This cliff also had a common name. It was known as the Cliff of Welcoming. Anyone who came from another plane would appear on the Mirror Moon Cliff, all because of the 2 enormous magical formations drawn by the overgods. Recently, the 4 Divine Beasts clan has been in a bad situation. Alas, 10,000 years ago, the 4 Divine Beasts clan was so glorious. Their clansmen were spread throughout every plane, and they were extremely powerful. But who would have imagined that in a single night, all 4 of the sovereigns of the 4 Divine Beasts clan would die at the same time? Recently, the revenge of the 8 great clans has been growing more and more frenzied. The Sea of Chaos has already become their designated battlefield. I hear that by now, 60% of the elders of the 4 Divine Beasts clan have died. Perhaps soon, the 4 Divine Beasts clan will completely disappear from the infernal realm. On the cliff, there were several men dressed in violet robes, who had special violet tattoos on their foreheads. They were chatting casually. Rumble. Right at this moment, the enormous magical formation on the cliff suddenly lit up with a resplendent light, and then roughly 10 figures appeared in the center of the magical formation. The newcomers have arrived. Everyone, get busy. Let's split the spoils. Staring at the 10 figures who had appeared in the magical formation, the men with the violet tattoos on their foreheads suddenly began to smile. 6 demigods and 4 saints. The quality of this batch is just barely acceptable. A purple-clothed man's gaze swept over the 10 people one by one. After sizing them up, he nodded. Is this hell? A place where experts are as common as clouds. Inside the magic matrix, 10 figures looked around. They came from different planes, but when they gathered together, they had the same desire and curiosity. Little fellows, welcome to the higher plane created by the supreme god, Hell. What led you here safely was this supreme magic formation, which was personally drawn by the overgod himself. Anyone who wishes to enter Hell must pass through this magic array. Even overgods are no exception. The purple-clad man in charge of receiving newcomers said calmly, "Is there really a supreme god in this world? Was this magic formation drawn by an overgod?" Hearing the purple-clad man's words, the 10 powerhouses who had just entered Hell were stunned. They lowered their heads to look at the magic array beneath their feet, shock filling their faces. Chila. But at that moment, a gap appeared above their heads. A young man appeared in the gap with a youth. On the youth's shoulder was a palm-sized mouse. Boss, is this the hell? It's so sinister. It's so different from our Yulon continent. BB stared around, unable to help but call out in surprise. At this moment, on the cliff below, the faces of everyone, including the purple-clothed man, were frozen. Their eyes were wide, and looks of disbelief were on their faces. It was as though they had seen something completely impossible. "Milord, didn't you just say that this magic formation was personally drawn by the Overgod? Anyone who wishes to enter hell must pass through this magic formation. Otherwise, even sovereigns cannot." The 10 people who had just arrived in the infernal realm stared blankly at the violet-clothed man. They didn't forget to point at Chu Bei and Linley, who were slapping their faces in midair. Their eyes were filled with confusion. Then how did they? "Shut your mouths." The purple-clothed man barked, and his powerful aura instantly sent the 10 noisy newcomers flying. In terms of shock, he was far more shocked than these 10. Since ancient times, he had never heard of anyone being able to enter hell from a material plane without going through a magic formation. However, the reality before their eyes was that this impossible scene had actually been witnessed by them. More importantly, from the aura ripples of these 2 people, one of them was only of the 9th rank, while the other seemed to be an ordinary person. It could be said that the 2 of them weren't even qualified to enter the infernal realm. After all, in order to enter the 4 higher planes through the planar overseers, one had to be at least at the saint level. "Where did you come from?" A purple-clothed man stared intently at Chu Bei and Linley. So powerful. Sensing the aura ripples emanating from the purple-clothed man, Linley let out a cry of surprise. The aura emanating from this man was even stronger than that of the war god O'Brady. "We came from the Yulon continent," BB said. "Bullshit. That's not what I'm asking." The purple-clothed man barked. "Why didn't you come out from the magic formation?" "I don't know. Boss just casually waved his hand, and we came in." "When we came out just like that." BB continued. "Casually waved his hand? Do you think you are an overgod?" The purple-clothed man immediately frowned, thinking that BB was trying to trick him. Capture them first and let the Lord Prefect make a decision. In the next instant, the 3 purple-clothed men flew towards Chu Bei. Noisy. But just as the 3 purple-clothed men attacked, a calm voice drifted out. Immediately afterwards, the 3 purple-clothed men exploded, as though they had been crushed by an invisible force. Instantly, the 3 purple-clothed men transformed into nothingness. "I'm impossible." Staring at his 3 companions who had mysteriously died, the eyes of the purple-clothed man who had questioned BB suddenly contracted, and a surge of terror filled his heart. "You? Who are you?" "Exactly." The purple-clothed man in charge of welcoming the newcomers stared in terror at Chu Bei, his body involuntarily retreating backwards. But as soon as his trembling voice came out, his body seemed to have been invaded by an invisible force, and he was mysteriously sent flying towards those 2 people of unknown origins, unable to move at all. And then, he felt a wave of dizziness, as though someone had read his memories. "Let's go to the Bloodridge continent." As his soft voice came out, Chu Bei took a step forward, disappearing from the sight of the people on the cliff. At almost the same time, with a bang, the purple-clothed man exploded. From the purple-clothed man's memories, Linley knew that the infernal realm primarily consisted of 5 vast continents. They were the Redbud continent, the Carol continent, the Muja continent, the Bloodridge continent, and the Jadefloat continent. Aside from these 5 continents, the rest was the sea. These 5 continents formed a ring, and within the ring was the vast Star-Mist Sea. The Outer Sea was also known as the Chaotic Sea. Chu Bei's target for this side mission was the Skyrite Mountains of the Indigo Prefecture of the Bloodridge continent, where the 4 Divine Beasts clan resided. They're all newcomers. Why is he so powerful? The 10 newcomers on the magical formation stared in shock in the direction that Chu Bei and Linley had disappeared. They couldn't help but gulp in astonishment. Quick, quick, report this to the Lord Prefect. The three survivors in charge of welcoming the newcomers looked at each other. Ignoring the newcomers, they immediately flew towards the east in panic. Redbud Continent. Blackfeather Prefecture. What? You said that person directly cut through the dimensional barriers of our infernal realm? And he easily killed 4 intermediate deities. Within a large hall within the prefecture, a middle-aged man, after hearing his subordinate's report, immediately questioned the Lord Prefect. Lord Prefect, this is absolutely true. We saw it with our own eyes. A purple-clothed man replied respectfully. Where did they go? The Lord Prefect asked in a low voice. This, your subordinate does not know. The purple-clothed man bowed. Immediately search for them. Confirm their whereabouts. If these two truly were able to open a dimensional tunnel from another plane to the infernal realm, then this matter cannot be underestimated. The Lord Prefect narrowed his eyes, a solemn look on his face. No need to search. They've already left the Redbud Continent. Just as the Lord Prefect gave his orders, a cold, sinister voice echoed within the prefecture. The source of the voice couldn't be found, but it was everywhere. Left the Redbud Continent? How is that possible? The purple-clothed man called out in shock, a look of disbelief on his face. The Redbud Continent was so vast that even someone as powerful as a high god would need several hours to traverse it. But now, less than 15 minutes had passed. Could it be that the other party's abilities had already reached great perfection? How dare you? The Overgod has arrived. Kneel down and welcome him. When the Lord Prefect heard the indifferent voice, his body suddenly jolted. He hurriedly shouted at the purple-clothed man, then took the lead to bow to the void in front of him. Ma, Overgod. Hearing the Lord Prefect's words, the purple-clothed man's legs immediately turned to jelly. With a thud, he knelt on the ground, his expression extremely sincere and respectful. Rise, all of you. An ethereal voice rang out. The void in front of the Lord Prefect rippled, and a red-haired man walked out from within. When those two first arrived in the infernal realm, I sensed them. At first, I thought that they had come to the infernal realm by accident. After all, the ripples of their divine power were too weak. But when he attacked and killed those 4 gods, I knew that I had underestimated him. But when I was about to investigate him properly, he had already disappeared from the Redbud Continent. Overgod, from what you're saying, he left the Redbud Continent from the Mirror Moon Cliff with a single thought. The Lord Prefect was extremely shocked. He lifted his eyes to look at the Redbud Overgod and said tentatively, Overgod, I'm afraid that even you, that's right, I can't do that. Before the Lord Prefect could finish, he was interrupted by the Redbud Overgod. Overgod, does that mean that person's abilities have already? The Lord Prefect took a deep breath. Even so, it was still difficult for him to suppress the shock in his heart. I can't see through him. What I can be sure of is that he's not weaker than me. The Redbud Overgod shook her head. Then, her figure slowly faded. I should go out for a walk. While I visit my old friends, I'll see if I can meet those 2 fellows again. Could he be an Overgod from another dimension? But why don't I remember such an existence? The Lord Prefect muttered to himself. In the godly realm, the cultivation levels were divided into lower god, middle god, upper god, and perfected upper god. Above perfected upper god was the Overgod. At the Overgod level, one was already an unparalleled powerhouse in the coiling dragon world. In the entire coiling dragon world, the 4 higher planes, hell, the underworld, the heavenly realm, and the life divine realm, as well as the 11 divine planes, wind, earth, water, fire, thunder, darkness, and light, each of which had 7 overgods. The overgods were further divided into lower overgods, middle overgods, and upper overgods. Upper overgods were also known as juggernauts. They were the strongest powerhouses in the 11 divine planes. Among them, the juggernauts of the 4 higher planes were the most powerful. Above the juggernauts were the 4 overgods. They were the destruction overgod, death overgod, fate overgod, and life overgod. Unlike the juggernauts, The four overgods were not cultivated. Instead, they were formed by the natural order of heaven and earth. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.